On an unremarkable day, the main character was riding his red motorcycle down a city street when he was suddenly disturbed by a phone call. Wang Han, that was the guy's name, pulled out his phone from his pocket and answered the call. The girl stunned him with the news that she was pregnant with his child. Thinking that she was a fraud, he shouted that he didn't have time for this because he was busy delivering food. He got angry, thinking that they wanted to trick him with this old trick. The guy turned his attention back to the road. He was looking into the distance, frowning in anger, and continued to drive on his motorcycle. He sped down the road like a bullet, passing all the cars that were stuck in traffic, because the courier always needs to hurry. Soon, he arrived at the office where 4 of his colleagues were standing. The guys were discussing the miss from the Su family, saying that she was not an easy girl. The main character slowed down near the building, blinding the children with the bright headlights of his motorcycle. He did not pay any attention to them yet. Hearing that the boys were gossiping, Wang Han held a cigarette between his teeth and asked the fat man what he was mumbling. The fat man said that the daughter of a respected Su family is marrying the richest man in the city. But our hero was not interested in this story. The guy showed him a photo of the girl, explaining that she is insanely beautiful, and the rich man's son is not only a freak, but also a complete scoundrel. After looking at the photo, our hero said that it looks quite familiar. He guessed where he had already seen this girl. The main character snatched the phone out of the fat man's hand to take a closer look at the photo and make sure. It was hard for him to believe that he was looking at a picture of the same girl he had just met at the hotel. The dumbfounded guy confessed that this girl was familiar to him. He began to guess that that call from the Su family's daughter wasn't a hoax. A month ago, Nannon, the same girl, was returning to her hotel room, not understanding why her head was so dizzy, because she usually holds up better after drinking. Holding her head, the girl, feeling ill, assumed that the drink Chinhow had given her was poisoned. She even had to hold on to the wall to get to the hotel room. Finally, the girl reached the 809th room. She was surprised that the door was open, but she wasn't wary, just assumed that she had forgotten to close it when she left. Little did she know that the hotel room was already occupied by our hero, who was sitting on the bed lamenting and drinking alcohol directly from the bottle. This was how the guy suffered because he was told that his aura was too strong, which meant that he would have to go back to delivering food. Wang Han was in disbelief when he saw a drunken stranger plop right down on his bed without saying anything. Seeing the guy, the girl asked who he was and if he was really here to help her, and complained of dizziness. The main character's face immediately turned red. He looked away and froze, thinking how stunningly beautiful this stranger was. The girl grabbed his shirt and started begging him to help her. Wang Han didn't understand what she was trying to do and wondered if he was dreaming. Now the guy's plump colleague asked Wang Han why he hung up, and our hero recalled this event by looking at the girl's photo. The fat man laughed as he asked if Wang Han was trying to make up a story again and was about to claim that he was the big girl's boyfriend. A second colleague made fun of our hero, saying that all Wang Han does is make up nonsense, and recently he said that he is an international arms dealer. Wang Han simply lit a cigarette in response and told the guys that they just didn't understand anything and he was working undercover. The boys roared with laughter as they got on their bikes, telling Wang Han that anyone can talk, and one joked that he was Beyoncé's boyfriend. They were about to leave to deliver their orders when a red sports car screeched to a stop right in front of them. The fat man and the others opened their mouths in surprise when they saw a luxury car in front of them, which was not often seen in their town. The door of the red sports car opened, revealing the foot of a girl who was wearing high-heeled shoes. It turned out that the same red-haired girl who our hero accidentally met in the hotel a month ago came here. The daughter of an influential family named Nannon got out of the car, striking everyone with her unsurpassed appearance. All the couriers looked at her with admiration. Their cheeks flushed. They couldn't hide their smile as they looked at the beauty. The fat man was the first to realize that the girl in front of them was very similar to the one they were all discussing just now. They were shocked when they realized that it was definitely them. They didn't understand what she was doing here. The daughter of an influential family, Nannon approached our hero, who was stretching without paying any attention to her, and asked why he did not answer her calls. The boys were even more shocked when they saw that the daughter of a rich family really knew their colleague Wang Han. Removing the cigarette from his mouth, the guy asked what kind of phone calls he was talking about, and what was going on in general. Then Nannon decided to tell our hero to his face that she was pregnant and the baby belonged to him. All the couriers were dumbfounded. They found it hard to believe that the girl was carrying the child of their colleague, who, as it turns out, did not lie to them. Rubbing the bridge of his nose, the main character asked the girl if she was sure that this was his child. Wanting to prove it to him, the girl looked at him and suggested that the guy go with her to the hospital. She told him to get in the car. The fat man began to push our hero, who froze, urging him to go faster and not stand. Wang Han agreed that he also needed to go if it concerned him, and asked his colleagues to cover for him in front of the manager. The main character got into the car to a red-haired girl, and she began to rush down the city street to get to the hospital. Rubbing the back of his head, Wang Han asked if it was really his child, and Nannon asked why she would lie about it. With all seriousness, the guy said that if the child is really his, then he will take responsibility for him and for the girl. The red-haired girl holding onto the steering wheel turned her head and stared at the guy in silence. Her cheeks slightly flushed. She grinned as she asked if he was going to provide for her and the baby with the money he received from working as a courier. The guy replied that he earns money honestly, and there is nothing shameful about working as a courier, so supporting her and the child will not be a problem. Nannon asked him if he understood that she was from the Sue family, and he yawned and said that it didn't matter, because all this status was nonsense. The girl got angry when she heard this. She frowned, stared ahead, and silently slammed on the brake pedal. Wang Han wasn't wearing a seatbelt, so the sudden braking caused him to fly forward, hitting his head on the windshield. He got angry and shouted, asking if she did it on purpose and what was so special about her family. The car had already pulled up outside the hospital, and the girl announced that they had arrived and told Wang Han to get out of the car. After getting out of the car, Nannon leaned on it for a while, looking into the distance, thinking about her problems. She advised the guy not to throw words about responsibility so much, and warned what would happen to him if her family found out that she was pregnant with his child. The main character began beating his chest and shouting that he was not joking, and if the child really is his, he will take responsibility. It seems Nannon didn't take his words seriously. She went to the hospital, telling him to follow her. In the corridor, the girl asked him to wait here for a while she went to the doctor. Patients and doctors were wandering around inside. Our hero was perplexed when he saw that the girl came to the operating room. He did not understand why she needed it. Nannon finally turned around, looked at the guy with sad eyes, and said that she was already going in there. The stunned guy clenched his teeth in anger when he realized exactly why the girl was going to the operating room. He ran over and grabbed her shoulder to stop her. Wang Han shouted, asking if she was serious about it. The girl replied that he himself knew very well that he would not be able to feed her and the child, and Wang Han replied that money was not a problem. At that moment, a nurse came out of the operating room and told the girl that it was time for her procedure. Nannon let her know that she was ready, and the main character still held her shoulder and looked at her, hoping that she would change her mind. But the red-haired girl silently went into the operating room, without saying another word to the child's father. Wang Han realized that it was completely useless to argue with this lady, because none of his arguments had any effect on her. The girl was already lying in a hospital bed, covered with a white sheet, and the surgeon pulled on gloves and asked if she was ready. Nannon couldn't tell the doctor that she was ready, and the saddened girl wondered if she should make this choice. The surgeons approached her and asked her not to worry but rather to relax, promising that the procedure would end soon. The girl made it clear that she had changed her mind. She pushed the doctors away and asked them to wait a second. The guy was sitting on a bench in the hallway at the time, thinking that there was nothing he could do if it was fated that she wouldn't have this baby. But, unexpectedly, Nannon came out of the room, dressed in her usual outfit. The procedure ended very soon. The main character looked at the girl dumbfounded, because he didn't expect her to leave the ward so soon. The guy ran after her, wondering why she only recently entered the operating room and already left. Nannon complained of being slightly tired and asked the guy to drive her home, asking if he could drive her car. Smiling, our hero put his arm around her and said that, of course, he could handle the car because he could even fly an airplane. Soon, the girl's red sports car was speeding down the road again, heading towards her family's mansion. The car was already approaching the second block of the Longwan district, when suddenly one of the guys in the car called. The main character answered the phone and asked what happened while Nannon was sleeping in the passenger seat. He was told that the auction would be held today, and the old man wants the guy to attend in person, and Lin Qingyun will also be present. Soon, the car stopped near the 19th house, which belonged to the family of a pregnant girl. The guy told her to wake up. After waking up, the sadness still lingering on Nannon's face, the guy once again told her that they had already arrived at her house. She got out of the car and advised our hero to get out of here before someone from her family noticed him. But Wang Han noticed that she looked a little weak, so he insisted that he accompany her at least to the door. The girl refused, thanking him for offering to help and telling him to stay out of her business. Before reaching the mansion's gate, Nannon stumbled and screamed in fright as she started to lose her balance. Noticing this, the main character rushed forward and managed to pick up the girl, not letting her fall. Nannon was very offended when our hero repeatedly called her incredibly clumsy. The red-haired girl got angry and pinched Wang Han's arm with all her might, and the guy screamed loudly in pain. But Nannon did not spare him and continued to squeeze his skin with her fingers. Wang Han shouted how much it hurt, almost in agony. To bring the girl home, the main character brazenly grabbed her in his arms so that she did not stumble again and did not hurt herself even more. The guy complained about how rude she was to him, but still humbly carried the girl to her house. Inside, he sat her down on the couch, knelt down in front of her, and began to examine the ankle she'd twisted. Nannon refused to help, telling him to just leave, but the guy didn't listen to her, ordering her not to move. While Wang Han was putting the bandage on her leg, other members of the girl's family suddenly appeared in the living room. It was the mother of a girl named Yang Huimin and Nannon's best friend, and the woman asked her daughter what the two of them were doing there. The main character explained to the woman that her daughter twisted her ankle. The girl confirmed that it was so. Nannon shamelessly told her mother that her boyfriend had come to help her heal her leg. Wang Han was taken aback when he heard the girl calling him her boyfriend, and he stared at her in shock. Nannon's mom was also shocked. She screamed, asking if she really called this delivery guy her boyfriend. The woman came closer to her daughter and demanded to know what was going on here. An enraged Yang Huiman pointed her finger at our hero and raised her voice to ask who the food delivery guy was. Her daughter was so saddened that she couldn't explain to her mother who this guy was, so she didn't say anything. She decided to admit that she was just joking, and she twisted her leg, so this guy decided to help her. Yang Huiman told her daughter that she had scared her to death because she could not make mistakes, because the wedding with the son of the Qin family is coming soon. The main character was outraged that the woman did not like that he worked as a courier, and asked her what was wrong with this profession. The girl's mother got angry, saying that the guy is nobody who is aiming above his league, so he can only dream. Veins bulged on the young man's face when he heard this. He glared at the woman and asked her to repeat what she said. The girl allowed the guy to leave, thanking him. Our hero snorted with displeasure and turned around. Wang Han put his hands in his pockets and silently walked towards the exit, the girl's best friend glaring at him. Yang Huiman ordered the floor to be cleaned where that stinky courier who had soiled everything was standing, and asked her daughter's friend to take the girl to the bedroom. The blonde replied that she understood everything, but did not stop looking at the main character, who had already left. In the bedroom, a blonde girl asked a sad friend what she had in common with that guy, and she said nothing. The friend was outraged, realizing that Nannon was lying. She said that the girl would never be able to deceive her because everything is clear from her face. Putting her hand on her stomach, the red-haired girl was silent for a while, but then admitted that she was pregnant with his child. This unexpected news threw the blonde into shock. She stared at her friend with wide eyes. She asked why she decided to have a child with the courier. Nannon said that it was all an accident. That day she drank a lot. Her friend asked her what she was going to do now, since it would be impossible to hide it from the Qin family. And Nannon said that she had decided to keep the child. This angered the blonde, and she screamed, accusing her best friend of losing her mind. Nannon explained that she had already asked the guy several times if he would take responsibility, and he agreed. The blonde tried to reason with her friend, shouting that she was the daughter of the Su family, and he was just a courier who was not even close to her. The red-haired girl stopped her, saying that she would find out for herself, and asked why she had returned. She said that her grandfather came to the city to meet an important person, so she came with him to attend the auction as well. The blonde's expression changed abruptly as an idea crept into her mind. She was delighted and immediately told her friend about it, and Nannon asked her what idea she had. The girl suggested that her friend just tell everyone that the guy abused her. Nannon replied that only she could think of such an abomination. Meanwhile, the main character left the Su family's mansion and went on about his business. Coming out to the road, the guy complained that in this area with villas it is impossible even to call a taxi. But suddenly a status black car stopped in front of him, and our hero drew attention to the mysterious car. The guy started up when he realized who exactly was in that car. He stared at her in disbelief. An elderly man in a suit got out of the car, greeted the young master, and introduced himself as a representative of the Chamber of Commerce named Lin Qingyun. The main character in response silently looked at the old man, assessing him, and did not introduce himself, realizing that his name was already known to him. After bowing respectfully in front of the guy, the elderly man announced that he had come to escort him to the auction. Our hero scratched his chin and remembered that the old man had mentioned that Lin Qingyun wanted to go to the auction with him. When Wang Han came to the car and told him that he needed to shower and change before the auction, he said that he would arrange everything for the young master. The main character got into a black limousine and went home to prepare for an important event. Soon the auction started. There were many round tables in the hall, where important people from all over the country gathered. Wang Han also arrived at the event, thinking that there were too many people here today. Suddenly, he saw the blonde girl he had met earlier in the Nannon house, and she was also surprised to see him. She came up and asked the guy what he had left at the auction, because she recognized him as a courier whom she met at her friend's house. The main character tried to tell the girl why he came here, but the blonde immediately interrupted him. The girl, pointing at him with her index finger, suggested that the young man simply also works part-time here. Wang Han started to deny it. He wanted to explain everything to the blonde, but she interrupted him again. Lin Kuei-fu roughly grabbed the sleeve of the guy's expensive black jacket and pulled him along, wanting to talk somewhere else. Our hero was taken aback when she pulled him along, saying that she needed to talk to him. She stated that Nannon is her best friend, and she swears that the guy will regret it if he doesn't take responsibility for the child. The guy stared at her with shocked eyes because he thought that the girl got rid of the child. Enraged, the blonde grabbed him by the collar and screamed, saying that her friend said that she would leave the child. Shocked, Wang Han began to guess that the girl had not had an operation in the hospital yesterday, having decided to keep the baby. The ferocious Lin Kuei-fu once again decided to threaten the guy, which would make him regret if he refused the child. The guy screamed loudly in pain, clutching his knee as the blonde hit him on the leg with her sharp heel. Soon, The host from the stage announced to the ladies and gentlemen who had gathered here that the auction would start soon. Wang Han still found it hard to believe that Nannon had left the child behind. He wanted to finish things here and find her as soon as possible. He whirled around when he heard someone greet him. It was a demure girl with glasses. The girl introduced herself as Liu Yue and said that today she would be his assistant appointed by the chairman. The guy didn't mind. He replied that the auction was about to start, so it was time for them to take their seats. Both of them were startled when they suddenly noticed the people who had caught their attention. The silhouettes of 3 men appeared in the doorway, one of them stating that today's bidding was for the new district project, and the Chin family was bidding for it. Stroking his mustache, the man smiled slyly and expressed the hope that everyone would show respect. Chin Lei, the eldest young master of his family, warned the guests that if they didn't, they would have to face the consequences. Wang Han asked the assistant who he was, and the girl replied that he was a young gentleman from one of the richest families in the city. She said that the Chin family is going to take over the new district project and help the Su family out of their problems by getting their support. Remembering the words of the fat man from work, our hero realized that he had just seen a relative of the man Nannon was going to marry. Wang Han was clear now as he stared at the short, plump man with a mustache who had already taken his seat. The announcer announced that the next lot was Lot 052 in the new neighborhood, the one everyone was aiming for. Chin Lei immediately held up a sign, announcing that he was offering as much as $5 billion for this coveted plot. The guests were shocked to hear this amount, wondering who would dare challenge the Chin family. It was the main character, who also held up a sign and announced that he was ready to purchase a plot of land for $6 billion. The people present were even more shocked. They assumed that this guy wanted to die, wanting to compete with the Chin family. They shouted that the Chin family would not forgive him for this, because the project was almost in their hands, and accused our hero of recklessness. Chin Lei was furious when he saw that someone wanted to fight him. The fat man slammed his fist into his thigh. Gritting his teeth in anger, he shouted, asking the guy who he was and why he was deliberately looking for trouble. The unperturbed Wang Han replied to the man that this was an auction, and the winner was the one who offered the largest amount of money. An angry Chin Lei shouted, asking the guy if he hadn't heard that his family wanted this project. Putting one hand in his pocket, our hero replied that he had heard, and asked what it had to do with him. The auction guests were shocked. They had no idea who this guy who dared to go against the Chin family was. Chin Lei's blood vessels burst in his eyes from rage, and he held up the sign and shouted that he was raising the bid by 700 million. Wang Han had no intention of giving up, but he also held up a sign, announcing that he was raising the bid by 800 million. The man couldn't stand it, got up and walked over to our hero, shouting to the scum that in this city the Chin family is the law. Chin Lei grabbed the youth by the collar and shouted that no one would take away what his family wanted, and our hero only looked at him with disdain. The man looked at the guy from under his brows and shouted that he was betting 900 million, and he could continue if he wanted. In response to the attempts of the short fat man, the main character just laughed in his face, flashing snow-white teeth. With a big smile, Wang Han announced that he was raising the bid by a whole billion, wanting to further annoy the man. Chin Lei couldn't take it anymore, swung his fist and shouted that the guy had asked for it, and that he was going to be fed to the dogs today. The man did not have time to hit our hero, because the first one was punched in the face. One solid blow was enough to knock the little man off his feet and send him flying backwards. Chin Lei collapsed on the floor and gave up, while his brutalized bodyguards rushed forward to avenge their boss. One of them, Wang Han, defused the first thing that came to hand, namely a chair, throwing it at the man. The second bodyguard didn't even have time to blink. He froze, realizing that he was about to fly in too, but it was too late. The main character decided to get rid of the guard by kicking him right in the face. Shocked, Chin Lei clutched his face and tried to understand what had happened, shouting, asking if the guy dared to hit him. Glancing at the man from under his brows, our hero replied that it was him he was beating. He was not going to stop there. The guy kicked the fat man's bodyguard so that he flew away and crashed right on top of his boss. Chin Lei's face twisted as the burly guy fell with a crash and landed right on top of him, pinning him down with all his weight. After finishing, the main character asked the audience if anyone else was going to make a bet. The dumbfounded and sweaty host looked at the guy in fright and replied that no one else would bet. Then, with a wave of his hand, Wang Han told the assistant to sign everything and transfer the money, and he would leave, because he still had a lot of things to do. After the auction ended, Lin Suifu went to see her grandfather, who was sitting on the sofa at the time. Scratching the back of her head, she asked him why he had decided to invite her to the event. After all, she had even missed the auction. Grandpa replied that he couldn't tell her that yet, but asked her not to talk too much when the man showed up. The blonde was wary, curious about what kind of important person this was, that even her old man was being so cautious. The assistant reported to the master that the auction was completed. The girl asked if the Chin family won the auction. She was told that it was someone else. She was shocked because the Chin family already had this project in their pocket. She was curious as to who dared to oppose them. Grandpa explained to her that the bidder was the one they were waiting for. And the girl replied that this guy must be very confident. She picked up the phone and warned the old man that she was going out to call her best friend. But he just grunted. In the hallway, all she could think about was that Chin wouldn't be able to cooperate with Sue now, and she needed to tell her friend about it right away. The blonde didn't even notice that our hero was walking towards her, so she collided with him and gasped, hitting her head on his chest. She screamed, outraged that this stinking courier wasn't looking where he was going, and our hero wasn't happy to see her either. After passing by, she finally called her friend and told Nannon that she had important news for her. The main character entered the study. The old man immediately jumped up from the sofa and was glad that the young master had finally arrived. Wang Han reported that the auction business was already settled and wanted to ask who the blonde girl was, but she was interrupted. The master replied that it was his unmarried granddaughter who admired the young master and had always wanted to meet him. Wang Han asked the old man if he knew Nannon, who said that she was a young lady from the Su family, and the whole family was proud of this outstanding girl. The guy chuckled and asked how the girl's life was going and how many boyfriends she had. Grandfather replied that Sue's family had a strict upbringing, but the girl's character was stubborn. She didn't get close to people, and she had never had a boyfriend. The news pleased our hero. He grinned, and then reached into the pocket of his jacket because someone called him. He was just thinking about Nannon when she called him right away. The guy saw the girl's name on the screen. After answering the phone, Wang Han heard that the girl wanted to meet him. The guy agreed to come. Waving his hand, Wang Han said that he was leaving, and Lin Qingyun finally wanted to tell the young man that he and his granddaughter graduated from the same academy in London. Nannon was already waiting for him in the park. The girl was sitting on a bench and staring at the blue lake surrounded by the city's skyscrapers. The red-haired girl was not in a good mood. She stared at nothing in silence, her expression sad. The main character drove up to the meeting point on his red motorcycle, which he uses as a courier. The girl noticed him when she noticed Wang Han walking towards her in silence with his hands in his pockets. He sat down next to her, put his arm around her and told her not to worry about the baby, promising that he could marry her at any time and would always provide for her and the baby. She looked at him quizzically and asked if he was sure he could pull both her and the baby financially. Looking up at the blue sky, the main character asked the girl what was so heavy about it. Suspecting that the guy simply did not know how much it would cost him, the girl showed her watch and asked if he knew how much it cost. Wang Han guessed the exact model of her expensive watch and gave its specifications, assuming that it was worth 352,000. Surprised, Nannon asked how many years he would have had to work as a courier to afford such a watch. The guy said that he would definitely not allow her and the child to have something, so let her not worry about money. The red-haired girl was distracted from the conversation when someone called her. She looked at the phone screen. It was her mother who told her daughter to go home soon because Chin had arrived to discuss the wedding. She asked the guy if he could take her home. He was happy and said that he would be happy to do it. The main character walked over to his red motorcycle and patted the seat, telling the girl to sit down. Nannon didn't argue as she got on the motorcycle. The guy immediately rushed forward, the beauty's hair fluttering in the wind. Feeling comfortable around the young man, the girl pressed her face against his back and closed her eyes, smiling faintly. Our hero's dusty motorcycle continued to race down the city street, heading towards the villa where the Su family lives. Soon they arrived at the place. The guy decided to accompany the girl who was pregnant from him further. He entered the house with her, and the red-haired girl on the doorstep announced to her mother that she was already there. The angry woman shouted, asking her daughter where she had been, because Lord Chinhow had been waiting for her for a long time. Nannon came closer and calmly explained to her mother that she was just going out for a walk. The bewildered mother asked why the girl brought someone with her, and reminded that her wedding day was already close. Sitting on the sofa was the same Chinhow who had waved to the girl. He had come to discuss the upcoming wedding. The second young master of the Chin family put on an unpleasant smile and greeted his future wife. Nannon suggested that the man postpone the wedding issue for now because his family did not win the tender, and cooperation between the families has not yet been fixed. The man replied that it was a small matter, and they need to first secure the union by marriage, and then discuss the rest. Licking his lips, he added that first he and the girl should get closer, and then he will decide whether to give her money. Yang Huimin tried to reason with her daughter, saying that the Chin family had promised to give them $1 billion after the wedding to help them deal with the difficulties. But the girl was adamant. She told her mother not to tell her anything and said that she would not marry him. Chinhow and the woman were both taken aback. The mother asked her daughter what she was saying, knowing how important the cooperation of these two families was. Nannon took our hero's hand and shouted, repeating that she would not marry a man, especially since she was pregnant with Wang Han's child. Yang Huimin opened her mouth wide, in a state of shock when she heard the news. She tried to convey to her daughter that this guy was just a food delivery guy, but the girl was adamant. She promised that in time she would solve the family's problems herself. The woman screamed, asking her daughter if she really had no shame at all, and out of anger she couldn't stand it and swung her hand at her. Fortunately, the main character grabbed the girl's mother by the hand, preventing her from hitting the pregnant woman. He asked young Huimin what was wrong with being a courier and whether he had dug up the graves of their ancestors. The guy asked if a woman's desire to marry her own daughter to a scumbag was not a shame. The woman, even angrier, began to struggle, demanding that the stinking courier and the vile brat let her go. Chinhow shouted at Nannon that he thought she was a decent girl and confessed that he didn't expect her to be a loose trash. An enraged man began threatening the girl to take her life for trading him for a food delivery man. Nannon was so angry and insulted that looking at the scum, she couldn't find the words to respond to him. Fortunately, the main character stood up for the girl, who hit the man in the face with his hand. Wang Han's angry fist sent the scumbag flying backwards and crashing to the floor, hitting the sofa. The guy hugged the girl and claimed that she was pregnant with his child, so she was his woman, and no one gave Chinhow the right to treat her like this. As Chinhow struggled to get back on his feet, he screamed outrage that our hero dared to hit him. Wanting revenge, the man took the first thing that came to hand. It was an ashtray that was lying nearby. Chinhow rushed forward, shouting that he would take the guy's life, but our hero still stood calmly, hugging the girl. Grinning, Wang Han told his friend to hide behind him, but the frightened girl didn't argue. The boy easily dodged when the clumsy man tried to hit him on the head with an ashtray. Chinhow was defeated again because his attack ended up flying backwards again. The protagonist made the scumbag lose his balance with a light wave of his hand, shaming him in front of the Su family. Grimacing in pain, the man fell to the floor again, hitting his back, and Wang Han accused him of touching his woman. The guy sat on top of the man and readied his fist, warning him that he was going to teach him a lesson today. The defeated Chinhow began to cry out in pain, while our hero, without stopping, beat him with his fist, holding him by the collar with the other hand. The defenseless man could only scream, begging for someone to come to his aid. The main character finally stopped only when an elderly man entered the room and told him to stop. It was a grandfather with a wand, surrounded by his family members, who asked who dares to behave so brazenly here. The red-haired girl looked at the old man in fright and asked Grandpa what he was doing here. The head of the Su family and the rest of its members came closer to their granddaughter and our hero to understand what had happened. Chinhow, who had been beaten up by the guy, was still lying on the floor looking at the head of the family who had saved him in silence. My grandfather confessed that he had heard absolutely everything that had just been said in the living room of his mansion. Angry, the head of the family hit the floor with a stick and shouted, asking if his granddaughter was pregnant by this courier. The frustrated girl looked down shyly at the floor and confessed to her grandfather that this was true. All of her relatives were furious, shouting that this was outrageous madness because they couldn't afford to offend the Chin family. Chinhow stood up and shouted that even if the girl got rid of the child, the trash would never cross the threshold of his family's home. All the family members started pointing fingers at Nannon and blaming her for bringing their family to an end. Nannon could only stand on the sidelines in silence and listen to the accusations in her direction. Lowering her sad gaze, she decided to take control of the situation and raised her voice, ordering her relatives to stop swearing. From the stress of the pregnant girl became ill, once again asking them to stop fighting. She began to lose her balance. Fortunately, the main character managed to pick her up. He told her not to be afraid and said that he would take her away from this place. The girl's parents started shouting after the smelly courier, demanding that he let their daughter go, and threatened that they would injure him. The main character turned around, looked at them with disdain, and asked if they really call themselves people after that. Turning around, the guy walked back, slowly approaching the girl's parents, who froze and waited for his further actions. Angry, the young man broke the table in two with one kick, startling the girl's father and mother. Frowning, Wang Han stated that he was taking Nannon with him and asked if anyone had any objections. The girl's parents, her grandfather, and another family member all looked at the guy in shock and didn't dare to say anything when they saw how strong he was. The main character turned around and said that they were leaving, since the girl's relatives had no objections. It was already dark outside, and the following actions took place in the apartments belonging to our hero. Nannon fell asleep while driving to his house. The guy carefully laid the girl on the sofa in his living room. He noticed that the girl's ID card had fallen out of her purse, which was open. Curiosity got the better of him. The guy picked up the documents from the floor to look at the girl's personal data. He was surprised to see that today was her birthday. He realized that she was unhappy, because even in a rich family, she forgot about her holiday. Leaving her to rest on the couch, he decided to demonstrate what he was capable of, because, after all, this is his woman. 20 minutes later, Nannon finally came to her senses and opened her tired eyes, still not understanding what was going on. She stood up, rubbed a hand over her eye, and wondered where she was. Meanwhile, our hero has already dressed up in an apron and prepared food. He asked if the girl was hungry. The beauty turned her head and saw a guy in front of her. She silently looked at him, trying to recover. She got up and went to the table and saw a large number of dishes. Wang Han said that he had prepared them all for her. The girl praised how delicious the food smelled. The table was littered with various dishes, appetizers, soups, sauces, and other dishes. She smiled and asked if the guy could ever stop bragging when he said that even the Princess of Dubai would be begging to give her a taste of it by now. When the girl pulled up a chair to sit down, The main character told her that it was forbidden to say the word die today. The guy took out a pink cake decorated with a burning candle, winked and congratulated the girl on her birthday. Nannon immediately blushed and covered her mouth. She was shocked, so she asked how he knew that today was her birthday. The main character put a birthday cake on the table and asked if she was impressed that he knew this, and arranged a celebration for her. Tears welled up in Nannon's eyes involuntarily. She was moved, so she couldn't say anything back to the guy. After brushing the dust off her shoulder, Wang Han allowed her to cry and lent her his shoulder for a while, which is inaccessible even to international supermodels. The girl laughed sadly in response and stared at the cake and the burning candle on it with sadness in her eyes. The main character couldn't wait for the beauty to taste his food. The girl took chopsticks to start dinner. After taking the first bite, she immediately hummed with pleasure and praised the young man for the taste of the food. He had no doubt that it was delicious. The Nannon birthday celebration dinner continued, and there was still a lot of uneaten food on the table. The young man asked the birthday girl to make a wish before blowing out the candle. She closed her eyes and thought, propping his face on his hand. The main character asked the girl what her plans were now. She reminded him of his words that the guy would support her and her child, and asked if he really refuses these words. Wang Han said that he would not back down, and asked if she dared to marry him. And she jumped up and shouted that there was nothing to be afraid of, and she was ready for it. When the guy replied that, in this case, tomorrow they will register a marriage, the girl still did not back down. The main character looked her straight in the eye and said that then everything was decided. He was ready to marry the girl tomorrow. The festive dinner was interrupted by a phone call. The phone vibrated in the guy's pocket, and he looked at the display. He stood up and warned the girl that he needed to take this call. Nannon didn't mind letting him go. The main character went out on the balcony, answered the phone, and asked Xiaawan what had happened. The subordinate reported to the boss that he had received information that Hydra had arrived in the city to eliminate him. Our hero was calm. He asked where the Hydra was. He was informed that he had just appeared near the Lin family's villa. While the guy was smoking on the balcony and discussing important matters with his subordinate, the red-haired girl was bored on the couch. She was cheered by a friend who called her and wished her a happy birthday, asking if she had congratulated her first. But Nannon replied that she was the second. Lin Zuifu asked if it was that fat man from the Qin family who congratulated her first, and the girl said that it was Wang Han who congratulated her first. She confessed that it was a long story and that she was going to marry him tomorrow, and her friend started accusing her of being crazy. Panicked, Lin Zuifu shouted, telling her friend to calm down first and promising that she would think of something for her. The blonde girl, for the sake of a friend, was willing to go begging an important person that her grandfather knows to help the Su family survive the crisis. Wang Han was still talking on the balcony, having been informed that the eldest princess had asked where our hero was 2 days ago. While lighting another cigarette, our hero told him not to dare tell the princess that he was in Jiangning. He was shocked when the subordinate replied that Wang Han knew her temper better, and understood that he would have been punished if he hadn't informed the princess. The main character was so stunned to find out that his location was exposed that he dropped the lighter from his hand. Reaching down to pick her up from the floor, Wang Han started shouting, asking why the guy had given away his half-brother. He replied that with her high birth and financial resources, they were perfectly suited to each other, and hung up. The news upset our hero noticeably. He lowered his head down and thought that it was very bad that the princess knew where he was. Suddenly, there was another phone call. Our young hero wondered who was bothering him again. It turned out to be a message from Lin Zuifu, Lin Qingyun's granddaughter, who wrote that she would like to discuss the new district project with him. The exasperated guy replied out loud that no matter what the conditions were, the girl didn't seem to hesitate to ask for anything. Lin Qingyun immediately called the young man and apologized for the inconvenience, saying that his granddaughter had somehow found his contact in the old man's phone. Wang Han told the old man that he needed a sniper rifle and would pick it up tomorrow, and told him to hand over all the authority for the new area project to Nannon. Nannon was still bored by being alone, so she moved into the spare bedroom and lay on the bed reading a book. A friend called her and reported that she had contacted a very important person who had agreed to work with the Su family on the new neighborhood project. The news that Nannon was going to lead this project made her happy, and she set up a meeting with her friend for tomorrow. Wang Han came and asked her what she was so happy about, and she said that he wouldn't understand even if she told him what was going on. Hiding her confused look, the girl tucked a lock of hair behind her ear and said that she didn't expect the guy to like reading too. As he reached for the book, Wang Han looked at the girl and replied that there were things about him that she couldn't imagine. He reached out to touch her, and she blushed and asked what he was going to do, then backed away. But it turned out that the main character was not going to touch her. He grabbed a pillow that was lying behind the girl. Taking the pillow, the guy suggested that the girl go to bed early if she was tired, and he would sleep on the couch today. He turned and left, saying that reading in bed at night was very bad for pregnant women. With a sigh of relief, she flopped down on the bed, her cheeks flushed as she was impressed by the boy's behavior. The next morning came. It was time to charge. Our hero was standing on 2 fingers, counting how many seconds had already passed. Nannon also woke up and went out on the balcony. She asked if the guy was practicing toad kung fu. He changed his position and asked her not to talk nonsense, explaining that it was his dragon hand. The girl admitted that she had never heard of such a thing. The guy said that this is not an ordinary martial art, but an authentic Chinese kung fu, a real deadly technique. When the girl asked why he needed such skills as a courier, he replied that his father said that you need to use force to protect your family and stop the war. Wang Han said that breakfast was ready, and there were new supplies for the girl in the bathroom, and she said that she didn't expect him to be so thoughtful. He decided to intrigue her by telling her that she still had a lot to see. And Nannon asked him to bring her home after dinner. The guy asked her why she should go home, and she replied that she needed to collect her documents in order to marry him. Wang Han was visibly surprised. The girl suggested that he wanted to change his mind, but he replied that they would get the certificate right away. Soon after they left the house, Nannon suggested that the guy introduce her to his parents, but he replied that it would be after the baby was born. Nannon asked why, and he said that he was afraid that his family would look down on her, and when the baby came, they wouldn't be able to do anything. She was indignant when she asked if he wanted to tell her that she was marrying someone of higher status. Wang Han replied that she only had good looks, figure, and manners. Scratching his head, the main character decided to admit to the bride that her family is a little poor. The girl wanted to hear that she was more than worthy to become his wife. The young man replied that he was just joking and told her to get on the motorcycle. He told her to hold tight to his waist and not move, and Nannon told him to shut up and drive on. Soon, the red motorcycle left the territory of the residential complex. The guys were going to go to the registry office to register the marriage. They didn't notice that Chinhow and his burly assistant were standing nearby and asked the master what he would order him to do. Clutching the cigarette tightly in his hand in anger, Chinhow shouted, ordering the assistant to take the courier's life and kidnap the girl. The scar-faced guy flexed his fists, and he and the other two big men replied that they would immediately proceed with the order. Meanwhile, our hero's motorcycle was still racing down the city street. Nannon clung tightly to the guy, holding his waist. In the rearview mirror, the attentive guy noticed that they were being chased by a mysterious white car. He glanced back and wondered if anyone was following him in broad daylight. It was a van with tinted windows. The main character suggested that the bride first return to her home so that she could pick up her things, while he decided to solve some cases. Wang Han stepped on the gas pedal and increased his speed as he maneuvered between the cars to get rid of the pursuer. Soon, he pulled up in front of the mansion where his fiancée lives, and he gave her a ride to pick up everything she needed. Finally, he told her that he would pick her up when he finished all his business. Nannon replied that she would send him a message later. The white van was still chasing our hero's motorcycle, and the guy noticed it when he cautiously looked back. He decided not to deal with the pursuers right there, but to leave, and the van immediately raced after the guy. The main character went straight to the villa that belongs to the Lin Qingyun family to pick up the ordered weapons. The guy braked sharply so that his red motorcycle stopped perpendicular to the road. When he stood in front of the villa and looked at the windows, he was startled because he noticed that someone was waiting for him there. Wang Han noticed a shaggy-haired man with a beard who was cautiously peeking out from behind the frame, and it wasn't surprising that he was ambushed. But Wang Han wasn't afraid. He went ahead to enter the house, deciding that it was time for him to stretch his muscles. The main character entered the living room, where there was no one, and began to climb the marble staircase to the second floor of the villa. The young man entered the study, where old man Lin Qingyun had already prepared a sniper rifle for him. Grabbing a huge sniper rifle, our hero praised old man Lin, saying that he was very efficient at work. The guy became alert when he noticed a woman's underwear lying nearby. The blonde girl screamed when she saw our hero. It was Lin Suifu, the granddaughter of the host. Lin Suifu screamed, asking the smelly courier what he had left behind in the villa that belongs to her and her family. But there was no time to explain. Wang Han noticed a red dot on her forehead and shouted for her to go to bed immediately. He had to wrestle the girl to the floor himself, and a moment later a gunshot rang out, shattering the room's windows. The girl screamed at the scumbag to let her go, not suspecting that our hero had just saved her from death. She was terrified when she realized what had just happened, and Lin Suifu stared at nothing in particular, trying to make sense of what was happening. Grabbing the rifle, the guy advised her to keep quiet, otherwise she might die. The girl asked him what was going on. He knelt down and took aim with his rifle, saying that he wanted to check if the Hydra really had 9 lives. Taking aim, the main character fired a sniper rifle. The roar resounded throughout the room. The bullet whizzed out of the villa, and in a moment had already reached the building that stood on the opposite side of the street. But the enemy shot back at the same second. The main character was forced to grab the girl again so that she would not be hit. The guy threw her back on the bed. Fortunately, the bullet flew past without hitting either him or the girl and hit the wall. He took the girl's clothes and decided to throw them towards the window to cover them. He realized that it wasn't just the Hydra that had arrived to eliminate him. Our hero said that there were quite a lot of guests here today, not counting the shooting incident, and blocked them with the girl's dress. Wang Han looked through the scope of the sniper rifle again to get rid of the shooters who were hunting him. Taking aim, the main character fired a shot, sitting right on the bed. A bright flash appeared at the muzzle of the rifle. The bullet flew through the glass again, leaving a hole in the window, and flew towards the enemies who were aiming at the guy. One shot was enough to get rid of an armed man who was standing in a nearby building. The shooter who followed our hero was eliminated, so the danger is now less. Wang Han said that he did not expect Hydra to be such a weak opponent, and the girl demanded to know why he came to her house with a gun. But the main character didn't answer her question. The guy looked out the window and froze for a moment, noticing another threat. Soon, other armed men were also eliminated from firearms. The surviving gunmen started shooting at the villa belonging to the Lin family, one of them standing on the balcony in the building opposite. Several bullets simultaneously penetrated the room where Wang Han and the old man's granddaughter were, the guy protecting her with his back. The main character went to the hold wall and took one of the bullets that was fired at them by the opponents. He saw that the bullet was engraved with a hexagram, which meant that it was a special piece of ammunition made by the Abyss assassin organization. The guy asked the girl when she managed to contact the gang of Eastern Europeans. She, clutching her head, replied that she did not know. Nannon started to panic. He didn't know what to do because he was too careless and only asked the old man for 2 bullets. Finally, the girl got it. She admitted that earlier one Eastern European boss wanted to buy scientific developments of her company, but she refused. Wang Han noticed that someone was shooting at them again, so he shouted at the girl to be careful and grabbed her to push her to safety. The guys both hid behind the sofa so that the shooters wouldn't see them. The frightened Lin Suifu was quiet, silent with her eyes closed. The guy found a way out of the situation. He drew attention to a sharp piece of glass and said that this is what he needs. The main character quickly ran to the window and swung his hand to throw this piece of glass at the opponents. The impact was so strong that the fragment left a huge hole in the window and flew further, aiming at the armed bandits. The guy's accuracy was staggering, and with one shard of glass, he managed to eliminate another shooter. The man dropped the sniper rifle from his hands and hung from the glass railing on the terrace of the building opposite. After brushing the dust off his jacket with his hand, the protagonist allowed Lin Suifu to get up, assuring him that it was already safe here. The girl realized that the food delivery was just a cover and asked the young man who he was. He replied that she did not need to know. She got angry and shouted that he had to tell her everything, otherwise she would tell Nannon, who made it clear to her that she needed to be quiet. The guy sternly looked at the blonde and told her not to make any noise, saying that something was happening outside. Lin Suifu couldn't contain her emotions and screamed again in fright, asking if there was anyone else there. The blonde burst into tears and threw herself into the arms of our hero, asking what she should do now. There were indeed still armed men outside, wondering what the boy who worked as a courier was doing in this villa. The scar-faced youth that Chinhow hired assumed that our hero came here to steal something. Without being afraid of them, Wang Han strolled down the stairs to the first floor, waved, and said hello. Grinning, he put one hand in his pants pocket and asked the bandits if they were here for him. The scar-faced guy shouted that they were Chinhow's men, and Nannon was their boss's woman, and accused our hero of just pretending not to know what was going on. Unperturbed, Wang Han scratched his forehead with a finger, replied that he was clear, and asked the guys what they wanted from him. The bandit shouted, demanding that Wang Han not touch his daughter-in-law again, and told his subordinates to take the guy's life. The 3 strong men armed with machetes didn't frighten Wang Han at all. As he stood quietly with his hands in his pockets, one of the scum hadn't even gotten close to the guy before he received an impressive kick on the neck from Wang Han. With the second blow, our hero also got rid of the second bandit, who screamed and cursed when Wang Han's soul was placed on his chest. The gang leader froze when he saw that with a few deft foot movements, Wang Han managed to get rid of both of his subordinates. The scar-faced guy panicked when he saw that the bastard was also fighting like a pro. He shouted that he couldn't believe that he couldn't handle some courier and charged forward, swinging the machete. His punch missed because the main character jumped to the ceiling in time when the guy swung the weapon. Wang Han then swung his foot and simultaneously knocked the weapon out of the scoundrel's hand, and also caused him to lose his balance. With one movement, our hero managed to neutralize the gang leader. At that moment, Lin Suifu just appeared in the room. The blonde girl, seeing that a violent fight was going on here, screamed loudly in fright, clutching her face with her hands. The guy with the scarred face got angry and asked the girl through gritted teeth why she was yelling here, then grabbed his gun again. The scoundrel roughly grabbed the lady of the villa by the arm, and she only had time to open her mouth in fright when the big man dragged her to his side. He began threatening our hero that he would take Lin Suifu's life if he dared to move, and the girl warned the bandit that her grandfather would not forgive him for this. The main character reacted indifferently to the attempt to intimidate him, keeping his hands in his pockets. He replied that the guy could do it. The guy started to slowly approach the scoundrel, who shouted at Wang Han not to approach, otherwise he would really hurt the girl. A bandit with a scar on his face held a blade at the girl's neck, but our hero continued to provoke him to action. Wang Han asked the bandit if he had lost his fear, and the bandit started shouting angrily, warning him not to approach. Stopping the bastard's machete with one finger, Wang Han walked up to him and asked if he dared to wave the weapon in front of him with such pathetic techniques. The bandit panicked. He couldn't move his weapon at all. He couldn't believe that his opponent had such incredible strength. Wang Han calmly asked the guy why he was standing there and not fighting. And the guy, sweating, began to stutter and panic a lot. It was enough for the main character to slightly squeeze the machete between two fingers to turn the enemy's weapon into small fragments of metal. The scoundrel could only open his mouth wide in surprise when he saw how overwhelming the opponent's strength was. Wang Han then grabbed the bastard by the throat and asked if the guy, being a rotten fish and a small shrimp, was worthy of fighting him. The guy tried to stop our hero, confessing that he is a member of the Black Dragon Society. But that didn't stop Wang Han, who slapped the scar-faced scoundrel with his palm and asked what difference it made. Our hero only charged him with a slap, but it was so strong that the bandit fell to the ground with a crash. The scoundrel tried to reason with Wang Han, urging him not to go down the criminal path when he was so young. But the main character was already unstoppable. He started kicking the guy in the bandana with his foot, not listening to his moralizing. Being in a helpless situation, the guy could only cry out loudly in pain while lying on the floor. Clutching his stomach, he screamed, begging Wang Han to stop hitting him because his 80-year-old mother was waiting for him at home. Wang Han decided to give him 3 seconds to say his last words, and he told him that Chinhow had already left for Nannon, so he needed to act. For the main character, this news was unexpected. He dumbfounded looked at the bastard and shouted. Enraged, Wang Han kicked the guy in the face once more, asking why he didn't tell him such an important thing earlier. He stopped when a police siren sounded, and the law enforcement authorities were looking for anyone at the scene of the crime. Wang Han immediately ran away, finally telling Lin Shuifu to keep his presence here a secret. 2 men in police uniforms ran into the house, and when they saw Lin Guifu, they told the girl not to worry. One of them showed her his police ID and asked her what had happened here. Outside, Lin Shuifu told the police officer that she was just taking a shower earlier, when 3 villains with knives suddenly burst in. The rest of the police officers handcuffed the bandits to take them to the police station on the orders of their commander. A police officer reported to the captain that 2 bodies had been found in the house across the street, and it didn't look like they were ordinary people. Meanwhile, Chinhow had already successfully abducted Nannon. He shouted that she had gotten out of it last time, but now he would use force. A frightened red-haired girl was standing by the bed and shouting, telling the man to get out of here. But the fat man replied that he had already sent his men after that courier, and now he was going to lose his life right in front of the girl. Angry, Chinhow rushed forward to pounce on the girl, shouting that he would take her life today as well. But the man did not have time to do anything, because a few seconds later, he received a strong blow to the face. It turned out that our hero came to help Nannon in time, who protected the girl from the scoundrel. The guy approached the fat man, who was already lying on the floor, and concluded that he was tired of living, since he dared to touch his woman. Clutching his face, Chinhow shouted, asking the guy if he knew who his father was since he dared to hit him. Our hero, piercing the fat man with a cold look, replied that he knew who his father was, and he would pay for having such a son. Chinhow angrily swung his fist and shouted that his father was the richest man in the city, so our hero would pay the price. The main character, seeing this, kicked the man with his foot and shouted, asking the non-entity who he was to yell at him. The fat man flew back and crashed to the floor. Our hero went up to the girl and calmed her down, saying that she was not afraid because everything was in order. Nannon, bursting into tears, hugged the savior and said how good it was that he came. He replied that no one would dare to touch her as long as he was around. Chinhow broke into a run, shouting at the damn courier that he was going to pay for what he did today. The girl asked the guy what time it was, and he looked at her worriedly and asked why she was interested. She explained that she was just rushing to the company for a business meeting, and Wang Han agreed to accompany the girl. When they arrived, the girl, who was the company's CEO, was informed by a subordinate that Director Liu was already waiting for her in the conference room. Nannon arrived accompanied by her new husband, and she immediately apologized to Director Liu for the delay. The main character was dumbfounded when he saw his assistant, who also didn't understand what her boss was doing here. To get out of the situation, the guy hugged the assistant and pretended that it was her classmate, whom he did not expect to see here. Nannon believed that it was an unexpected meeting of classmates. Director Liu played along with our hero. Director Liu sat down with the others at the table and suggested that they get straight to the point. They were going to discuss some project. But then a whole crowd of men burst into the conference room, led by an old man who said that Director Liu's presence was an honor for their humble family. The bespectacled girl stood up and greeted Senior Master Su, while the dumbfounded Nannon asked Grandpa what he was doing here. Grandpa explained that he had heard that they were going to discuss the new neighborhood project, so he came running here without even having dinner. The old man scolded his granddaughter for bringing so many people to an important event, and she shouted that she would decide who to call because she was negotiating this project. Her father, Su Jianye, started yelling at her daughter to not dare to speak on behalf of the whole family, but rather give way to her brother and instead brought drinks to the guests. Sulie, the girl's brother, took the lead and greeted Director Liu, saying that Nannon meant nothing in the company and the project only needed to be discussed with him. Nannon tried to defend herself by shouting at her grandfather that this project was hers, but the old man repeated once more, banging on the table, that she needed to bring water to Director Liu. The girl's uncle, named Su Jianzhang, told her niece to leave the business of the company because she would still get married sooner or later. Our hero stood up for Nannon. He accused the girl's family of wanting to grab the project that was assigned to her. The eldest head of the family shouted, telling the guy to shut up, because he was nobody here to say anything. The girl's uncle and brother started openly laughing at her because she got pregnant by a guy who delivers food. Head Su shouted to his granddaughter to get the low-grade trash in the face of our hero out of here, and Nannon stood up for her husband. Her grandfather was even more angry with her when she said that he had no right to talk like that about a man who earned honestly. Wang Han couldn't stand it, stood up and said that they were bastards who had forgotten that only Nannon had the right to lead this project. Grandpa shouted, reminding the guy that he was just a courier, so he didn't have the right to take orders here. Grinning, Wang Han asked Liu to show him respect, and said that the project could only be passed on to his fiancée Nannon. Everyone was shocked when our hero called the director his classmate. Sulie tried to convince her that the project should be entrusted to him after all. Liu said that she wants Nannon to lead the project, and they will have to look for other partners if their company does not agree to this. Grandpa asked if she could talk to her boss, and she said that she was in charge of the matter herself, so the master didn't have the right to meet with her boss. The Su family's senior master drooped when he heard this. He hesitated and looked down, giving up. Uncle Su Jianzhang asked Director Liu not to get angry. He promised that this project would be handed over to Nannon, and they would meet all the requirements. Director Liu asked everyone to leave the conference room so that she and Miss Nannon could discuss the details of the contract. Su Jianzhang was forced to agree to leave. He helped the eldest head of the family to his feet. As they left, Sulie complained about the father who agreed to these conditions, and the latter told his son to be quiet. Director Liu and the red-haired girl started discussing the contract, and our hero called her family a bunch of clowns who only disgrace themselves. In another office, Su Jianzhang's uncle tried to calm down his indignant son by telling Sulie that he knew how to handle this. Sulie asked Su Jianya to come out for a moment to discuss it with his dad, but he didn't want to, saying that they were in the same boat. Su Jianya stunned everyone by admitting that Nannon wasn't his own daughter. They had adopted her and her wife because she couldn't have children. Uncle Jianzhang asked who the girl's real parents were since she was adopted. His brother replied that he did not know, and that they had probably died long ago, leaving the girl only a worthless pendant. With a malicious smile, Uncle Su Jianzhang stated that he had a way to take the project away from the girl, but he wouldn't share the detailed plan just yet. Sulie confided in his father and didn't ask any more details about what exactly he was going to do. The action continued to develop on the territory of the company owned by the Su family. Our hero went outside. He took a cigarette in his mouth and spoke to the guards who were standing nearby, asking them to light it. The guards gave him a lighter and asked him if he had come for an interview because he was dressed very formally, and the guy said no. While lighting a cigarette, Wang Han said that he was just a courier who delivers food, which made the guards laugh, because couriers and guards are eternal enemies. Wang Han laughed at what they called a sworn feud, and while he smoked, he asked what they were doing here. They stood up quietly and reported that President Su was the first beauty of the company to motivate them to work every day. Our hero criticized them for being so prostrate in front of a woman, and the chubby security guard replied that Wang Han was even worse, because he was just a courier. The guards, standing at attention, greeted the boss loudly in one voice. The girl praised them for their good work and asked where her car was. The guys were happy that the boss had praised them today, and the main character asked if they were overreacting. One of the guards put a hand on Wang Han's shoulder and said that even if he was just a courier, he still needed to dream. The guards gaped in surprise when Nannon drove up to them and told the protagonist to get in the car. When our hero came to the car, he waved to them and said that he would remember their words, and they stood there, taken aback, and could not say anything in response. The red sports car sped forward, and the security guards just stood there with their mouths agape in shock at what they saw. Nannon was happy. She said that thanks to her friend Lin Suifu, who found the big boss behind the project, everything went smoothly. Wang Han asked her to make sure to thank this boss properly, and the girl told her that they would be able to get the marriage certificate ready tomorrow morning. She warned him that she was only marrying him so that the child would have a father, and after the birth, the guy would receive 30,000 yuan a month. The guy crossed his arms over his chest and replied that since she decided to support him, then this amount seems too small for him. She stepped on the gas pedal and told him not to be impudent, thinking that working as a courier, he earns much less. Soon, Nannon's red car pulled up near the residential complex where the main character lives. When Wang Han got out of the car, he noticed that she had already learned the way to his house, and the girl replied that with GPS, she could go anywhere. They started walking slowly home, and the guy asked her to wait a minute because he needed to answer the phone. He answered the phone and was informed that a batch of goods had been consumed by Bald Lu, the head of the Black Dragon Society, and the black card was already at his door. The guy said that he would deal with it before tomorrow afternoon, and they asked him if he was getting married. Wang Han got angry and asked who had leaked the information, but was told that the rumor came from Lin Qingyun. The old man asked why the guy was suddenly hooked by some girl from the Su family, when the country is full of daughters of influential clans that he had already rejected. Sweating, our hero began to shout, trying to reach the old man when he warned that his older sister would visit him tomorrow. Wang Han threatened to pull out the old man's oxygen tube, and Nannon came over and asked what was wrong. The main character put his arm around the girl, replied that nothing had happened, and suggested that she go home. Nannon and her new fiancé entered the apartment together, and there was a piece of white paper on the coffee table that caught her attention. The girl picked it up and asked what it was because it hadn't been there before. Taking off his jacket, Wang Han replied that it was just a postcard for one person and said that he would make her something to eat because she must be hungry. Nannon sat on the sofa and smiled as she found herself thinking that keeping a stay-at-home husband wasn't so bad. The main character put on an apron and rolled up his sleeves, promising that he would quickly finish cooking, and the girl thanked him for his concern. Grabbing the spatula, Wang Han said that for his wife and child, it is not a burden to him, especially since he is now a gigantic husband householder. The red-haired girl looked back at him in silence, a soft smile on her face as she held his black jacket in her hands. The next day, the events unfolded on the territory of the local registry office, where our heroes got married. The two of them came out with their passports, and Wang Han stated that he was officially a family man from that day on. Nannon asked the smug guy if he was going to be a delivery boy today, and he said that since he was on parade, he would rather go out with the girls. She got angry, shouting that he still had the same character, even though he was already married, and the guy replied that rotten dirt does not stick to the wall. They turned away from each other and walked off in different directions. Wang Han decided that he would first carry out the old man's errand. Soon, the young man came to a huge skyscraper and stood in front of the entrance. This building belonged to the Black Dragon Society. He knew that the Black Dragon Society used to be a local gang in the city, and now it had turned into a whole large group. The guy decided to see what the gang is really capable of, which in fact knocks out debts, resells old cars, and engages in usury. Inside, our hero was met by a shaven-headed guy who asked Wang Han why he was here. With his hands in his pockets, Wang Han gave the bald guy a cold look and replied that he was here to collect a debt. One of the bandits suggested that he go upstairs, but Wang Han said that they didn't understand because he had come to collect a debt from Bald Liu. The big guys immediately got angry and readied their fists. They shouted, asking the idiot if he understood where he was going. A guy with long hair tried to hit the main character, but he stood rooted to the spot, and the blows did not affect him in any way. He swung his leg in an attempt to beat up Wang Han, but our hero still stood firmly on his feet, as if he didn't feel any pain. The big man fell to his knees on his own, knocking his legs off a tall guy whose body felt like it was made of steel. When the guy with the long hair couldn't fight anymore, our hero decided to finish him off and kicked him in the face. Next up was a bald man who swung his fist to punch Wang Han with all his might, but it only brought a smirk to his face. The main character only had to swing his leg once to punch the shaven-headed bandit in the face. The bald black dragon guy flew backwards and collapsed, while the long-haired bandit looked at Wang Han with fear. Wang Han, still with his hands in his pockets, asked them if they would take him to Bald Liu now. Bald Liu, a large muscular man, was currently resting in his office with a beautiful girl, but suddenly, he was disturbed by his subordinate, who rushed into the office without knocking and shouted that someone had entered their building. The boss was indignant and shouted, asking the subordinate if he could see that he was busy, and asked who dared to break into his territory. The subordinate wanted to explain everything to Bald Liu, but then fell silent when he saw something shocking in front of him. He only had time to spread his legs wide and stretch out his arms when he saw one of the guys in their group flying straight at him. Bald Liu was also dumbfounded when he saw one of his subordinates being thrown such a long distance away. He grabbed his gun and shouted again, asking who dared to enter his territory. His undershirt subordinate ducked down and managed to cover his head with his hands as the man threw a sign towards Bald Liu. Bald Liu Yi only had time to raise one eyebrow and ask what it was when he saw a black tablet flying straight at him. When he took it in his hand, he was sweating and scared when he realized that it was the black card of the 10 Elders Association. His subordinate was also frightened and asked if this was the same terrible organization that unites 10 underground leaders. He paled when he heard the person who broke in ask him if he had heard about the 10 Elders Association. Bald Liu immediately started fawning and said that they were honored to have Junior Master Zhu himself come here. The man fell to his knees in front of our hero and said that he was ready to listen to his orders, and the guy replied that it was good that his name was remembered after all this time. The main character stuck a cigarette in his mouth and lit it when a shaven-headed man gave him a lighter. After taking a drag on his cigarette, Wang Han said that he had heard that Boss Liu had recently swallowed a whole batch of goods, and the bald man tried to explain that it was a misunderstanding. The guy said that he admired the courage because they stole the goods of the Shilong Society, and Liu, secretly reaching for the gun, promised that he would return everything. Keeping his cool, our hero asked the man if he hadn't heard that when a black card appears, even gods and ghosts die. Liu sharply pointed a gun at the boy and shouted that he would have to be cruel if the younger master dared to come to his territory alone. The main character threw a burning cigarette in the direction of a shaven-headed man with 2 fingers to disarm him. This cigarette hit the gun with such force that Director Liu lost his grip on the gun and fired it at the ceiling. Our hero once again showed the black card and declared that everyone who had ever pointed a gun at him was already dead. After these words, Wang Han, using the black business card of his organization with one deft movement of his hand, took the life of a careless big man. The shaven-headed man collapsed to the ground. His life force instantly drained from him after the trick that our hero pulled. His girlfriend was scared, shouting that he was dead. The boss's subordinate was also shocked to see such a cruel picture in front of him. The guy in the t-shirt with the tattoos on his arms couldn't believe that his boss was gone, and beads of sweat ran down his face in shock. The others heard about the shocking news too and ran to the scene. The men in black suits were taken aback. The entire building was filled with shouts that Boss Liu had been robbed of his life, and everyone stared at him in shock as he lay on the floor. Wang Han put his hand on the guy's shoulder and said that he had 2 options: give up the goods and become the boss, or give up the goods and lose his life. The subordinate chose the first option, and he and everyone else bowed down to our hero, saying that they only recognized Junior Master Ju from now on. The main character waved his hand and said that this is great, but now they should lead him to the goods that they stole. The action continued to unfold on the territory of a tall glass skyscraper belonging to the Black Dragon. Crippled, Chinhow and his henchmen got out of the car and walked towards this building. The fat man was determined to take our hero's life today. Turning around, the enraged man shouted to his subordinate that he had come to see the boss of the Black Dragon Society today. He said that he was willing to pay any amount of money if Bald Liu could send that courier to the other world. Long had already sat in the boss's chair and started giving out instructions. He told the others to follow him, and then they would become rich. Suddenly, Chinhow burst into the boss's office with his head bandaged, and he shouted to Boss Liu to announce his appearance. An angry man shouted, asking where Bald Liu was when he saw that he wasn't in the office. Long stated that the bald boss was no longer there, and the Black Dragon organization was now under his personal control. Chinhow congratulated the guy and said that he was offering him as much as 50 million if he took one guy's life. When the guy asked who he was talking about, Chinhow replied with disdain that he only wanted to order a regular courier. Long, smoking a cigar, thought that this was some kind of nonsense. And Mr. Chinhow was joking because no one would pay 50 million for a courier's head. Chinhow shouted that he wasn't joking. After all, this courier had beaten him up and taken his woman away, so he wanted him to die. The new boss of the Black Dragon got up, asked the man not to get excited, asked for a photo of that courier, and promised that he would send people. The man shouted that he didn't have his photo, but he knew where the courier lived. Long agreed to go together so that he could witness the execution of the order. Long told his subordinates to call the others to go together and avenge Lord Chinhow. The main character returned to his duties as a courier. Colleagues told him that his superiors were already looking for him. The guy said that he would go to the manager after work. The guys also got on their bikes and said goodbye to the guy, and Wang Han lit a cigarette before starting off. Holding a cigarette between his teeth, the guy gripped the steering wheel and concentrated on the upcoming trip. When he pulled out onto the road, he immediately started shouting and swearing at the driver of the black van that was blocking his way. The door of the black van opened to reveal Chinhow holding a phone, asking the bastard if he expected to be found so quickly. The main character stopped, got off his motorcycle, and indifferently replied to the man that it was unexpected. Chinhow rushed forward, brandishing the pipe, and said that the guy was still playing cool, even though the time was not right. An angry fat man with a bandaged head tried to hit our hero with a pipe, but he easily dodged. The man screamed in pain across the street as the guy threw a cigarette right into his mouth with a deft swipe of 2 fingers. After that, the main character kicked the fat man with his knee, asking if he didn't want to kneel down. When Chinhow didn't comply, the guy elbowed him on the back and shouted at him to get down on his knees in front of him. The man was forced to obey. He was forced to kneel in front of our hero, spitting out a cigarette on the asphalt. He lowered his head and shouted, asking Boss Wen what they were waiting for. After all, he didn't pay them to stand and watch him get beaten up. The door of the black van swung open, revealing the new boss of the Black Dragon and his 2 subordinates, while Wang Han stood with his back to them, lighting another cigarette. Long grinned wickedly and asked when the food delivery guys became so cool. Chinhow demanded that the guys don't take the courier's life right away, because he wants to play with the kid again. The new chief of the Black Dragon Society, who was appointed by our hero, came up to him and put his hand on his shoulder. When Wang Han turned around and looked at him with displeasure, he immediately broke out in sweat and turned pale with horror. The main character slapped the impudent guy who called him a friend. The cigar flew out of Long's mouth. The guy was indignant that Boss Long had become the boss only a few minutes ago, and already dares to be impertinent to him. Long began to tremble and apologize to our hero, because he didn't know it would be him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have dared to come. Chinhow shouted indignantly, not understanding what was going on, nor what kind of young masters he was talking about. He didn't finish his sentence when he was kicked in the face by Long, who had taken revenge for his boss. The impact of the new Black Dragon boss was so strong that the fat man immediately lost his balance and fell to the ground. Wang Han placed a foot on his chest and warned him one last time not to touch him if he wanted to stay alive. Chinhow agreed not to bother him anymore, and he looked at the guy in horror when he said that Nannon was now his wife. The main character told the man not to approach Nannon again, because he might not survive the next time. The fat man with the bandaged head screamed in pain as the guy put a boot right on his face. When Wang Han had everything sorted out, he reached into his phone and found that the time to complete the order was up again. The guy got on the motorcycle and sped off, and Chinhow shouted indignantly, asking why Long couldn't even handle the courier. Long was at a loss. He replied to the man that Wang Han was not a courier, but someone who it was better for no one to contact. The red motorcycle of our hero was parked near a dilapidated old apartment building, where he stopped during work. Wang Han wandered through the dusty gray corridor and complained about how shabby the place was, as he carried a paper bag of food to a customer. The guy stopped outside one of the apartments and started knocking on the wooden door to give the order to the owner. The door was opened by a tired man. He took the package, and when asked what the payment method would be, he replied that he would pay in cash. The customer's face twisted, and he turned around and realized that something had gone wrong when he heard some sounds. It was a frightened girl who was trying to get to the exit of the apartment and shouted that she was being held here by force, but there was another criminal in the apartment, who managed to stop the girl by slapping her on the back and yelling at her to shut up. The main character tried to ask what was going on, but the customer interrupted him, saying that it was none of his business, and handed him money for food. The man roughly slammed the door in front of him. The apartment began to panic. The criminals decided that it was worth taking the life of the courier who witnessed their actions. Wang Han scratched his forehead. He said that it was a very big coincidence that he ran into such an incident while delivering food. The main character was surprised. He asked if the man was serious when the criminal threw open the door and rushed at him with a knife. The guy only had to swing his leg once to knock the scoundrel off his feet and knock the knife out of his hand. After massaging his neck, he said that he was unlucky because even working as a courier, he had to swing his fists and stretch his legs. The second criminal was taken aback. He realized that this was not a simple courier, but a fighter, a real master of martial arts. But there was nowhere else to go, and he rushed forward with a large knife in his hand and warned that this was because the courier was meddling in his own business. He screamed in pain as Wang Han immediately grabbed his arm and asked if he dared to attack with such a useless technique. After the main character hit him with his fist and then the scoundrel's face twisted, he clenched his teeth in pain and began to fall on his back. The criminal collapsed directly on the bandit, who was neutralized earlier. The girl began to call someone for help. Wang Han kicked down the wooden door that led to the room where the defenseless girl was being forcibly held. The main character was briefly taken aback when he saw what was happening in the room where the villains were doing their dirty deeds. The girl, trembling with fear, continued to beg for help. She was tied with her hands and feet to the bed. Our hero approached her and began to release her. He asked the hostage if she could walk on her own. Wang Han carefully put his yellow jacket on her, and the girl, still trembling from the horror she had experienced, replied that she could walk on her own. The guy said that he had already called the police and gave her a phone number so that the girl would call her family members and they would take her away from here. Taking a rope, he warned that he would go and tie up those two scum outside to prevent them from escaping. The main character tied the criminals to each other and sat on the floor. He told the freaks that they were to blame for running into the wrong person. The girl was shocked that Wang Han had taken out two bandits on his own. So she said thank you and introduced herself as Xiaawan. Xiaawan opened her mouth in surprise when she looked at the screen of the phone handed to her by our hero. She immediately handed the mobile phone back to the owner, saying that someone was calling him. The guy answered the phone and asked who was bothering him, and there was an indignant woman on the other end of the line, because Wang Han did not say a word to his family about getting married. Wang Han was startled when he realized that it was his older sister, so he ducked down and started to make excuses to her. But the girl warned him that she would be in town tonight. The main character sighed heavily when this witch from the east really hung up without listening to his excuses. A second later, the door to the apartment swung open, revealing a grandfather who was worried about his daughter, and two policemen. Xiaawan, when she saw her father, immediately rushed forward to throw herself into his arms. The girl hugged her father and began to cry, still feeling terrified after what she had experienced. The restless father asked if she was all right. Xiaawan replied to her father that everything was fine and pointed her finger at the person who saved her. It was our hero. Wang Han said that he knocked out the two criminals, and the police were going to take them away from here and put them in a car. A white-haired man asked our hero if he really neutralized two bandits and thanked him for saving his daughter. The man didn't expect an ordinary courier to be so strong. He knew that there were 4 levels in the martial arts world, and this guy's aura was at least as strong as little Zunxi. He handed over a business card and introduced himself as Xiaawan, saying that the guy can now ask him for help at any time. Wang Han also thanked him and promised that he would definitely stop by the White Tiger School's senior tutor sometime. The guy waved his hand and said that he was leaving because he still had things to do. The man tried to stop him, offering a job in the hall for 50,000 a month. Xiaawan wanted to win over such a young hero, and his daughter screamed to warn him that there was blood all over his shirt. But the main character silently left the apartment building, walked past the police and criminals, and approached his motorcycle. He realized that even a normal delivery could end up in such a mess. Now he wanted to find Nannon as soon as possible. The guy turned the steering wheel handle and, leaving behind traces of exhaust gas, rushed forward to meet the girl as soon as possible. The following events took place in a tall glass skyscraper that belongs to the Su family. Nannon was sitting in a chair and reading documents. A guy came to her and said that he flew in as soon as he heard that she was in trouble. She pushed Lin Jingpeng away with the folder, thanked him for his concern, and said that his help was not needed because the company already had a solution. Lin Jingpeng tried to tell her that he had turned down many women because his heart only belonged to Nannon, but she wasn't interested. Then, the desperate guy grabbed her hand and begged her to become his woman, and he would give her everything he had. The girl got angry, slapped him in the face, and demanded that he have at least a drop of respect, because she is married and expecting a child. Lin Jingpeng clutched his face and couldn't believe what he heard. He assumed it was a lie, and the girl was deceiving him. Nannon looked at her husband with a smile when he came in and said that he saw that he had enough rivals. The guy got angry, asking what was wrong with the staff here, and why Wang Han came in and didn't even knock on the door. Wang Han explained to his wife that he had brought her food, because pregnant women should not starve, and the girl introduced her husband to Lin Jingpeng. The main character looked at his wife with a smile. He suddenly felt warm in his heart when he was called her husband out loud. Lin Jingpeng started to stare dumbfounded at the guy from head to toe. He couldn't believe that this was his lover's husband. Wang Han pointed to the door and told him that he and his wife were going to have lunch, and he didn't like it when someone interfered with their private time. Nannon also told him to leave. Lin Jingpeng clenched his fist in anger as he tried to reach out to his beloved. He shouted that he would not back down so easily, and the girl asked him to tell the reception that they would be fired if they let strangers through again. Wang Han laid out the delicious food on the table and said that even the love rival was pathetic, because he ran away before the guy even lifted a finger. The girl sat down in her chair and said that there are no feelings between them, so that the guy is not a rival in love with our hero. The main character looked at her with a smile and replied that he understood everything. The girl's words offended him a little. Nannon started eating the food that her husband brought her. The boxes were filled with fresh vegetables, seafood and sauce, and more. The guy abruptly closed the box back. The girl got angry. He explained that he would not give her food, since she claims that there are no feelings between them. The girl screamed that it was now his responsibility to feed her to her fill, because it was he who was responsible for her pregnancy. She continued to enjoy her meal and admitted that Wang Han's cooking was very good. Nannon suggested that he quit his job as a courier and said that she was ready to invest in his restaurant. The guy replied that his food was not worthy of trying just anyone. The girl looked at him with displeasure and said that for sure our hero had already prepared food for other women. He replied that he only cooked for one woman, or rather, for the baby in her stomach, because there are no feelings between them. Nannon asked why the guy wasn't wearing his courier uniform today, at which point he remembered that he had lost his jacket. The main character said that today, when delivering an order, he saved one attractive girl and lent her his uniform. The wife immediately kicked the guy out of her office, shouting at him to go to his attractive girlfriend. The guy was perplexed, not understanding why she was angry. When she slammed the door in his face, he shouted that pregnant women should not be angry. Nannon sat back in the chair and yelled back at him to go to that beauty and deliver orders to her. The red-haired girl snorted with indignation and jealousy as she picked up her phone to distract herself. She saw a message from our hero. He wrote that she should eat quietly while he went to earn money for a milk formula for their child. Nannon invited him to dinner with her family tonight, and she explained that he would go with her as the father of the child. The main character at this time was already out on the street. After correspondence with his wife, he told himself that she was a stubborn woman. He was annoyed that she called him just the father of the child, because he would have liked her to call him her husband. Wang Han once again got on his red motorcycle to race around the city while solving other accumulated cases. He crossed the road and began to rapidly move away from the skyscraper where he had just met his new wife. It was soon evening, and Nannon's red car was already parked outside the villa belonging to her family. When she came to dinner with her husband, her angry mother immediately yelled at her, asking why she had brought the creature here again. Standing up for her husband, the girl replied that she was already married to him and just brought her soulmate home. The woman was shocked. She screamed, asking her daughter if she understood what she was doing, registering a marriage with a courier. Nannon got angry, glared at her mother, and said that she knew exactly what she was doing. Su Jianye came and told the women not to make a circus at the family dinner. The girl's brother stood up for her, saying that his sister could marry anyone. Showing a fake smile, Sulie told his new son-in-law to come and sit down because the food will be ready soon. Her father told her to get up, change, and come down for dinner, and she agreed and went up the stairs with her husband. The girl's mother said that her relatives were crazy to ignore her daughter's marriage, so Sulie asked her not to worry, because Chinhow would be coming soon. The woman was very happy about this, as she was already waiting for Chinhow to help them show this non-entity courier their place. Nannon's parents gave young Master Chin a standing greeting and asked him to come and sit at the table. Chin asked Sulie why he had called him here so urgently, and Sulie asked him not to rush, saying that he had a surprise for him. As Nannon and her husband were walking down to the first floor, she saw Chin and asked the family what he was doing here. Her mother scolded her for not meeting young Master Chin with any respect, and the girl didn't understand what he had forgotten at the family dinner. The woman told Mr. Chin not to stand, but to sit down, and asked her daughter to sit next to the man. Indignant, Nannon asked her parents why there was only one chair left at the table, since now her husband had nowhere to sit. Her mother got angry and shouted that it was because their family's table wouldn't be filled with rabble. Wang Han asked her why he couldn't sit down if Chin could, and she advised him to look at his reflection, since he wasn't worthy of sitting next to them. Cursing was interrupted by the head of the family. He ordered everyone to sit down and eat, and those who did not have enough space, eat dinner even standing, even on the side. Nannon took the arm of her child's father and politely asked him to sit in the only available chair, saying that she would stand. Su Jianye then became angry and yelled at his daughter, accusing her of losing her mind, and ordered her to sit next to Mr. Chin. The protagonist walked up to young Master Chin and gave him a cold stare, causing sweat to run down the fat man's face. Unable to stand the strain, Chin got up and invited our hero to sit on his chair, preferring to stand. The girl's parents were perplexed. They tried to dissuade him, because Wang Han is not even worthy to sit at the same table with them. But Chin insisted that our hero sit down, saying that if Wang Han was not worthy to sit at this table, then so was he. The main character looked at his wife with a smile and told the baby's mother to sit down, because a pregnant woman cannot stand all the time. When she sat down, he told her to eat more meat to improve her nutrition, and the girl's parents did not understand what was going on here. Sulie then went up to young Master Chin, put his hand on his shoulder, and said that he had a surprise for him. Wang Han suggested that his wife forget about these people and just have a quiet dinner. They clashed glasses, and he asked her to drink less wine. Sulie asked Chin not to worry about that guy, saying that he had spiked Nannon's wine, so she would soon pass out. But Chin only got angry when he heard what a surprise was prepared for him. He shouted, asking if the guy really wanted Chin to take her life. Chin decided to warn the red-haired girl. He immediately turned around and shouted at her not to drink the wine because it was poisoned. The man immediately pointed at Sulie, exposing the girl's cousin, accusing him of trying to drug her. Nannon was furious when she heard this. She immediately grabbed her chair to get up and chat with her cousin. The girl grabbed her glass of red wine and threw the contents in her cousin's face, saying that he had completely lost his conscience. Sulie started to stutter, trying to explain everything to his cousin as he wiped the red wine off his face with his hand. The main character was also furious at the guy who wanted to do this to his wife. He swung his fist at the little bastard. A moment later, Wang Han's fist collided with the cheek of his wife's cousin, who didn't even have time to blink when it happened. Sulie collapsed on the floor after the first blow, and our hero shouted that he would take his life if he dared to touch his wife. Nannon didn't want to stay here any longer. She suggested that her husband leave the place that is soaked in dirt and hatred. The girl's mother stood up for her nephew, not her daughter. She asked the guy if everything was fine with him, putting her arm around his shoulders. On the way back, when Nannon and our hero were in the car, the girl asked her husband if he was going to explain everything to her. Wang Han asked what he should explain to her, but she didn't understand why Chin was acting like he was afraid of him. Breaking into a satisfied smile, Wang Han explained that some people can only be taught by pain, and Chin became silken after a couple of punches. Nannon, smiling, accused him of bragging again and reminded him that with his background, he didn't belong in their family. The main character replied that in his family the rules are much stricter than in the family of his wife, so it did not frighten him. When the guy looked at the screen of his phone, he screamed in fright that it was all over. It turned out that his older sister had written to him, warning him that his brother had 10 minutes to show up at the meeting place. The next actions unfolded already in the apartment of our hero, where his older sister was waiting for him. Nannon, as they approached the house, asked her husband who had come and why he was so frightened. Wang Han warned his wife not to pry when he talked to his older sister. The girl didn't understand why his small family was so strict. The guy replied that the girl would soon understand everything on her own, but she should hold her tongue when she saw her sister. When Wang Han entered the apartment, he gave a startled look at his older sister, who was already sitting on the sofa smoking. He pretended to be very happy to see her and shouted that he missed his big sister so much and asked why she didn't let him meet her. Rao Rushuang crossed her arms over her chest, only giving her younger brother a displeased look. Without even greeting him back, the woman sternly ordered her brother to fall to his knees in front of her. The main character immediately obeyed and knelt down in front of the older sister. His wife looked at him worriedly. Then, Rao Rushuano went back to the red-haired girl and told her to kneel before her too. The girl was taken aback. Not knowing what to do, Wang Han shouted to his sister that his wife was pregnant, so she could not go on her knees. Rao Rushuan Grubo grabbed the red-haired girl's arm and frowned at her wrist. She decided to check the pulse of her younger brother's wife to make sure that the girl was really pregnant. After confirming this, Rao Rushuan kicked her brother and shouted that he had lived abroad and brought bad habits from there. Backing up, sitting on the floor, the main character tried to convince his sister to at least listen to him. But Rao Rushuan was adamant. She said that first the guy will be punished according to the family law, and then they will talk. Unexpectedly, Nannon stood up for the father of her child. She covered him with her back and shouted that the woman did not dare to touch him. She screamed that she didn't know about their family rules, but Rao Rushu didn't even explain what the guy was guilty of before hitting him. Rao Rushuan said that her family's rules were simple and listed them, mentioning kindness, courtesy, wisdom, modesty, and more. The woman explained that it is disrespectful to marry without warning. Pregnancy before the wedding is a disgrace, and marriage to an unworthy one is stupid. Nannon was outraged when she heard that she was unworthy of her husband and asked the woman who she thought was worthy then. Rao Rushu sat down and said that her younger brother had already rejected 4 brides, among them the heiress of the capital's Ku family, Ye Huang, the general's granddaughter, and others. The main character modestly tried to intervene, asking his sister not to start his wife further because she is pregnant. Nannon was outraged that the siblings were putting on a show in front of her and shouted for them to stop. She said that now she sees that they are just children, and the bewildered guy asked what she was talking about. The girl suggested that her husband thinks that she is ashamed to be with the courier, so he came up with a fairy tale about the capital's aristocrats and generals. Wang Han tried to tell her that he wasn't making it up, but the girl didn't believe him. She said that she didn't want her child to grow up in such filth. He shouted her name, trying to stop her, but the girl left, saying that she would find him when the baby was born. Nannon went to the villa of her best friend, who asked her to rest and stay here as long as necessary. The girl complained that she never imagined that her husband would turn out like this, and Lin Suifu hinted that the guy wasn't pretending after all. Mrs. Su didn't believe that such a thing was possible, and most likely the guy just found a woman who played along with him in his performance. Her best friend replied that if everything he said was true, then Wang Han was clearly not who he claimed to be. Nannon looked at her friend with displeasure and asked why she was suddenly protecting him, which made the girl confused. She grabbed her hand and demanded that Lin Weifu tell her what she was hiding, and Lin Weifu tried to tell her that she wasn't hiding anything. The blonde girl collapsed on top of her friend and asked her how she could have doubted her. Nannon asked her how her request to find the contact of that big boss was progressing. The girl replied that she would definitely find him. They were both disturbed by an unexpected knock on the door, both of them having no idea who had bothered them so late. Lin Shuifu opened the door and saw Lin Jingping in front of her. She asked the guy what he was doing here. The guy said that he knew the same investor they were talking about, and he could throw a party if Nannon wanted to meet him. Lin Suifu looked at him in disbelief and asked if he really knew the person who invested $1 billion in the new district project. Nannon was overjoyed when she heard the news. The guy said that his grandfather took him to meet with that investor, so he can arrange a meeting with him. The next day, Wang Han complained that his insanely stubborn wife wasn't answering her phone and didn't want to listen to him at all. As he was smoking on the balcony, he squinted at the screen of his mobile phone again when he heard that he had received a message. He smiled, thinking that his wife had finally broken down and written to him. But it turned out that the message was not from her. It turned out to be Xiaawan Ying, the girl who was saved by our hero, who wrote that she had washed his clothes and wanted to deliver them to him. After replying that she didn't need to bother, and the things could just be thrown away, the guy looked at the black pearl given to him by his sister. When he got the call again, he asked Zhaohua what had happened, and was informed that Ironhead had died. Wang Han was shocked. He asked how it happened, and was told that Ironhead was trying to save drowning people, and drowned himself. Meanwhile, Xiaawan Ying was sitting on her bed with her face buried in her phone. She was upset that our hero didn't even want to pick up his clothes. The girl was sad that there was a possibility that she would never see her savior again. Her father came into her room and asked her what was wrong and why her face was so grim, and she complained that he didn't knock. The man replied that he knocked, just the girl did not hear, and once again asked what happened to her. He remembered that it was young Master Zhou's birthday tomorrow and asked her to go instead, which angered her. She shouted indignantly that she would not go to the birthday party of a man who was saved by a dead man, whom she called an idiot. The girl was angry that her father was dragging her into something like this, and he laughed and asked her if she had written to the courier. Frustrated, Xiaawan Ying confessed to her dad that she had written to that courier, and he replied that he didn't want to return his clothes. Dad tried to calm her down, saying that this means that fate did not bring his daughter and that courier together. On Zhou's birthday, there was a fight, and a man attacked a woman for being a journalist asking awkward questions. The enraged man once again swung his leg to beat up the woman who dared to come to his party. Before he could do so, he caught a glimpse of the elbow of the man who had decided to step in and stop the scoundrel. The dark silhouette of an unknown hero managed to stop young Master Zhou and knocked him down with a single blow. The impact was so strong that the birthday boy flew back a few meters and hit the wall, which stopped him. It turned out that this hero was Wang Han. Together with his team, he came and asked the birthday boy who he was going to kill here. Xiaawan Ying, who was also at the celebration, was overjoyed when she saw her savior again, and was convinced that it wasn't a hallucination. The battered birthday boy tried to get up, but he shouted at his subordinates to take the lives of those who were not invited to this holiday. 3 armed bodyguards rushed forward to take revenge on our hero, who dared to brawl in the territory of the Zhou family. But the chubby bald guy stood up for the main character and kicked one of the bodyguards. One punch was enough to knock the guard down and send him flying far back. After that, another guy from our hero's team intervened in the fight, who hit the second bodyguard with his knee. The green-haired guy with scars on his face also stood up for the boss and knocked out the third bodyguard of the Zhou family. A man in a gray jacket and glasses from our hero's team took on the fourth guard, punching him in Zhou's face. A team of 5 strong men successfully dispatched Zhou and his gang of bodyguards without getting a scratch. Then the birthday boy got up and started backing away. He screamed in fright, asking the hero's gang who they were. Taking a drag on his cigarette, Wang Han said that his brother's name was Ironhead, and that he had saved Zhou's life that day and died himself. Sitting down in a chair, our hero confessed that he was really infuriated by the way Zhou called his dead brother insignificant. Zhou shouted that he had power and influence, so his life was much more valuable than the life of the nobody who saved him. He called for more guards to help, and a second later another mob of bodyguards with batons burst into the hall. But our hero, sitting quietly, said that human life is never higher or lower, and he gives him the only chance to redeem himself. Young Master Zhou didn't want to obey, so he told our hero to stop acting like someone else and tell the guards to sort it out. The main character shouted that the guy lost his only chance, grabbed the chair on which he was sitting, and swung. The hero of the occasion screamed loudly in pain when the enraged protagonist hit him with all his strength with a chair. This caused young Master Zhou to fly backwards and land directly on the giant cake. The guy fell back to the floor and started coughing, cursing, and shouting, while the pieces of his birthday cake were scattered all over the hall. The main character came closer to him and again stated that he gave the guy a chance that he did not take, and he will not have a second chance. Wang Han, in order to avenge his dead brother, kicked the birthday boy in the face again, and he screamed in pain. 2 people entered the hall. One of them shouted, asking who this trash who dared to make a scene here was. This person was Zhou Xinghai, a white-haired man with a mustache, the head of the family and the father of the birthday boy. The guy started calling his dad and asking him to help him, but he couldn't get up on his own. When he saw who had done this to his son, he pointed his finger at our hero and ordered Old Song to deal with him. Xiaawan Ying started asking her uncle to help our hero because she was worried about the person who saved her once. Old Song, one of the strongest masters under the young mentor, rushed forward to pounce on the cheeky puppy. But the main character only had to reach out to grab the fist of the strongest master, stopping him. Song only grunted in disbelief and looked down at his fist in shock when he saw that the guy had immobilized him. It turned out that our hero was defended by his skin-headed chubby friend, who told Song that he would play with him first. The bald man used the Immortal's Rise technique on Song, grabbing him by the head with his giant palm. After that, he threw the strongest master to the floor, while the main character calmly watched with his hands in his pockets. The head of the Zhou family, seeing what had happened, asked his colleague what had happened here. As he tried to stand up, Old Song said that he had just been attacked with a diamond palm, which was the style of the Gu clan of Gangcheng. Then Zhou changed. He apologized to the guys for the rude reception and offered to calmly discuss today's situation. Frowning, Wang Han replied that he had already announced his terms, but his son had not accepted them. Mr. Zhou, smiling nervously, said that he had clarified that the deceased was only a mechanic, so he was willing to give $1 million to close the matter. This angered our hero. He sent a man and shouted that his brother's life was priceless, and with his foot smashed a nearby piece of furniture. Zhou looked at the guy with fear when he got close to him, and asked if he still dared to show off money in front of him. The man laughed and suggested that the guy walk around and ask around about it, because a couple of lives of some mechanics are pennies for them. He laughed even louder when Wang Han said that he could bankrupt his family right now, and left it to Xiaohua. The head of the Zhou family was dumbfounded when Xiaohua called someone and told them to immediately close all of the family's businesses in the city. But then the man laughed again and asked the guys if they were making a movie here because he didn't take it seriously. A second later, a worried man ran into the hall and told Boss Zhou that he had some bad news. He reported that all the partners had broken off their cooperation with them, and the companies and factories had stopped working on the orders of the Southern Lei clan. Zhou was shocked because he knew about this clan, and Xiaohua adjusted his glasses, winked, and introduced himself to them as the same Lei Xiaohua. Mr. Zhou started fawning over Lei Xiaohua and begging for his forgiveness. But the bespectacled guy wasn't impressed. He shouted at his son to quickly ask for forgiveness in front of them too. The birthday boy told Lei Xiaohua that it was a misunderstanding. The birthday boy started asking his dad to call his second uncle when our hero put his foot on his back and said that there was no misunderstanding. Zhou admitted that he was wrong and suggested that everyone take a step back. saying that his brother holds a high position in the army, and the conflict will not benefit anyone. The main character grinned when he heard that the man had connections in the army, and then asked his friend to make a call. The guy with round glasses immediately called someone and said that we need to break through one of the Zhou families from Jiangning City. Wang Han told Mr. Zhou that he was taking his son with him, and the man shouted, warning of the consequences of such an outburst. The birthday boy started shouting to his dad to call his second uncle as soon as possible. The man promised his son that he would do it. A sly, smug smile appeared on his face as he picked up the phone and saw that second uncle was already calling him. When he answered the phone, his brother immediately started yelling at him to stop making trouble, because now they had offended a figure from the capital's military department. Mr. Zhou was taken aback when he heard from his brother that he was about to be removed from his post and investigated. The following actions unfolded at the local cemetery, where the main character went with the one who was to blame for the death of his brother. One of the fresh graves belonged to his recently deceased brother, and it was written on the stone that Ironhead was buried here. Xiaawan and the others gathered in front of the grave, and he told whoever was responsible for their brother's death to fall to their knees. The main character forcibly forced Zhou to do this with his foot, and Zhou shouted in displeasure, warning that killing was illegal. Wang Han pushed him harder and shouted at him to beat his forehead on the ground and apologize to his brother. He used his boot to pin him to the grave ground, as the birthday boy was still struggling. Each of the team took a candle in their hands. They turned to Ironhead, saying that they had brought the kid to apologize to him. Everyone said goodbye to their brother, wishing him to rest in peace, while Nannon stood nearby at her grandmother's grave with a bouquet of flowers. The girl told her grandmother that she got married and is now pregnant, and the child's father is a delivery courier, against whom her whole family is against. She complained that her husband had hired people to play the rich young gentleman, and admitted that her grandmother was right when she said that men were worthless. Nannon put her grandmother's favorite treats on the grave and offered to talk about the good things, because she met a person who helped her survive all the difficulties. After putting the food that her grandmother had once loved on the plates, the girl told her that she had brought all her favorite treats. Finally, the granddaughter said that it was raining, so she had to leave and promised to return soon. The girl hurriedly left the cemetery territory. The friend asked the lady to get in the car faster because the rain was heavy. Lin Shuifu was displeased with the sudden rain and told Lin Jingpeng to get out of here faster. He was outraged that she was talking to him like that. Lin Jingpeng's black car started to move, but it was blocked by a long limousine that was standing perpendicular to the road. The guy was indignant and shouted that someone dared to block the road for him, and the blonde noticed that this car was elite. Tall men in dark suits, each carrying an umbrella, started to get out of the black luxury limousine. All of them began to approach our hero, greeting the young gentleman who was already returning from the cemetery. Wang Han had his friend Xiaawan handle the affairs of his daughter, who was orphaned after Ironhead's death. The blonde drew her friend's attention to a guy who was accompanied by a whole retinue, because he looked like her husband. After carefully examining the guy, Nannon realized that it was really her husband. She was not clear what he was doing here. Xiaawan walked to the black limousine and respectfully opened the door for his friend and boss, while the guards protected him from the rain with an umbrella. Lin Shuifu drew her friend's attention to the man who opened the door for our hero. Nannon didn't know who it was either. Lin Jingpeng was shocked when he realized that the man with glasses was Xiaawan, the heir of a very powerful southern clan. The black limousine and the car accompanying it started moving. First, our hero was going to call at the house of the deceased brother. Nannon assumed that there was some mistake, because why would the southern clan heir open the door for her husband? And her friend suggested that she call Wang Han. The red-haired girl replied that she wasn't going to call him. She couldn't believe what she had just seen. They closed the subject, and Lin Shuifu asked the guy behind the wheel how things were going with the investor Nannon wanted to meet. The guy asked them not to worry. He showed them a hand gesture and assured them that everything was already settled. On the way, Lin Jingpeng promised his friends that he would take the girl to meet that rich man the day after tomorrow. A black limousine pulled up to the house where the deceased Ironhead lived, and Grandpa was dozing peacefully on a bench. The entire team of 5 men got out of the car. Xiaawan said that it looked like they had arrived at the right place. The main character approached his grandfather, woke him up and asked if the Ironhead family lived in this house. Grandpa looked at the guy in disbelief. He asked what kind of Ironhead we are talking about. The guy realized that not everyone knew his dead brother's nickname, so he explained that it was Chen Qiang. The old man said that he lived on the 3rd floor, in apartment 326, and asked if they had come to visit the daughter of the deceased or to share the inheritance. He sighed heavily and said that the deceased was a good man, but his apartment had already been taken over by his cousin and his wife. When the guys went up to the 3rd floor, the main character wondered why a child was squatting in the corridor. Xiaawan was startled when he realized that someone had actually stolen their friend's property, and Wang Han asked the girl if Chen Qiang lived here. The battered little girl replied to our hero that her father was not at home because he had gone very, very far away. Xiaawan was dumbfounded when he realized that this girl was the daughter of their dead friend, so he asked her about it. Xiaawan patted her head and asked her why she didn't live in her house. The girl explained that her aunt and uncle didn't allow her to live there. She held up a cardboard box and said that her aunt had told her to live here now, claiming that this was her real home. The guy with glasses was extremely indignant, shouting that it was an abomination to force a child to live in a cardboard box. Xiaawan, enraged, started trying to kick down the apartment door with his foot to deal with the intruders. When he kicked down the door, he saw the displeased looks of Brother Ironhead and his wife inside, who were eating seafood at the table. The man got angry and shouted, asking who they were and how they dared to kick down his door. The main character asked the man since when this apartment became his home. He was scared when he saw a whole crowd of big men. The fat man started threatening to call the police, and Wang Han asked if he was even human, since he had taken his brother's property and was bullying his daughter. Wang Han, unable to control his emotions, called the man a beast and kneed him in the fat stomach. The man flew back and fell right on the table. Crabs and shrimps flew around the kitchen, and his wife started shouting that she was being beaten. Our hero took the girl by the hand and told Maitreya to teach the villains a lesson and show them where they were. Maitreya and the green-haired boy flexed their fists and looked down at the villains, grinning slyly. The shaven-headed guy happily punched the man in the face for what he did to their dead friend. In the corridor, Wang Han and Xiaawan decided to talk to the girl, and she introduced herself as GoGo. Xiaawan was worried about the girl. He told the boss that sooner or later the Guardians would ruin her if they just left her here. Then the main character asked the girl if she wanted to live with them, and she, without hesitation, agreed. Wang Han asked Xiaawan if he wanted to take the girl under his care, and Xiaawan said that he couldn't raise the child. Our hero looked at GoGo in bewilderment when his friend said that let him take care of her upbringing because she is attracted to him. Xiaawan told the little girl to call our hero Godfather, and she happily threw herself into his arms. Wang Han looked at his friend who had forced him to become a father just a few days after getting married with a smirk. The next day, the action unfolded in the apartment of our hero, who has become a father since yesterday. He made breakfast for his new daughter and said that after she ate, he would take her to school. They both sat down at the table and started eating. But then the main character was distracted by a mobile phone. Wang Han tried to persuade his wife to come home to eat, but she flatly refused, telling him not to come back until the baby was born. The guy complained about his wife's temper, and GoGo told her godfather that she had already eaten. The main character smiled at his adopted daughter and said that he would change his clothes now, after which he would take the girl to school. Soon the guy drove his daughter to school. It was morning, and there were many parents in the yard who were taking their children to school. He led her by the hand down the corridor and asked her to study well because it was the most elite school in the area that Uncle Lei had chosen for her. Wang Han brought the girl to the principal's office, who immediately thanked the master for choosing their school. The headmaster introduced himself as Duan, and also introduced the teacher, who turned out to be Xiaawan Ying. The main character was surprised when he saw the girl he had saved earlier and made it clear that he recognized her. Xiaawan Ying was visibly overjoyed when she saw her savior, and she smiled in disbelief. The guy was surprised that this girl was a teacher, and Xiaawan Ying asked if this girl was really his daughter. Our hero patted GoGo's head and told the girl that it was really his daughter. The girl was visibly upset to learn that the object of her affection has a child, and the director told her to take the girl to her class. Wang Han entrusted his daughter to the teacher, saying that it was time for him to go to work. The teacher asked him not to worry. GoGo waved to our hero and said goodbye to her godfather when the teacher asked her to do so. The main character finally turned around and told the girl that when school ended, he would pick her up from school. The teacher asked if Wang Han was not her real father, and the girl said that her own father had already gone to heaven. Xiaawan Ying realized that this wasn't her lover's own daughter, and said that she would take her to class now. The main character sat on his motorcycle and lit a cigarette. He complained about how difficult it was to be a father, because in the morning he had to run. Suddenly, a girl called him and asked him, insulting him like a bastard, if he missed her. Our hero dropped the cigarette from his mouth and started sweating when he realized who it was, and asked the princess how she got his number. The girl accused him of impertinence and said that tomorrow she would come to the city and he should wait for her, and the guy warned that he was already married. The next morning, the guy took GoGo to school again before work and told her to study well, promising that he would pick her up after school. The guy decided that first you need to warn your wife about the arrival of that girl, because after all, she has a child under her heart. He texted her to tell her not to pay attention if Auntie with a ponytail came. And Nannon thought that the guy wanted to put on another show. The main character lit a cigarette and sighed heavily, complaining that the women were all headaches. He rode his motorcycle because he had received an order, and was upset that he would be late again due to morning chores. At noon, the guy found himself in front of a luxury house, where he was asked to deliver food. He stood in front of the gate. The main character was impressed with the appearance of the building. He said that it was a whole mansion. Wang Han went to the door and pressed the doorbell, greeted them, and announced that the delivery had already arrived. When the door opened, the guy said bon appetit, wanting to hand him a pizza, but then stopped when he saw who appeared in front of him. It turned out to be Nannon. She was surprised to see her husband in front of her and asked what he was doing here. The main character was embarrassed to see the girl here, sweating and smiling, saying that it was a coincidence. A friend came up to the red-haired girl and asked who was there, and she said it was just a courier. A friend asked Nannon if she really knew this courier, and our hero lied, saying that they just went to high school together. The girl was surprised because she was also in the same class as Nannon and asked why she didn't remember him. Wang Han tried to get out of it, but he gave a false name and said that he was a bad student, and the teachers were chasing him all the time. Another guy came up to them, and when he heard that the courier was a classmate of theirs, he said that the person named Zhang Wei wasn't in their class at all. The guy came closer to our hero and asked if one of their classmates could really become an ordinary courier. He scolded Nannon for having such a big boss familiar with the courier. She asked what was the big deal. The young man shouted that there was a chasm between the bottom of society and the elite, so associating with such scum would only cause her problems. The guy asked our hero why he was standing here because he had already delivered the order and remembered that he had not paid him. Grinning, he handed him 200 yuan, saying that it was a reward from him because the courier probably wants to get a tip. Our hero turned pale with anger. He really wanted to hit the impudent guy, and the owner of the house asked why he was not leaving yet. But Wang Han controlled his emotions, accepted the reward from the host, and thanked the boss for the generous tip. When the girl appeared and asked if this was the pizza she ordered, the guy immediately rushed to Ying, calling her a goddess to hand her the pizza. It turned out to be Ying, who ignored the pizza guy and happily ran towards our hero. The main character was embarrassed when he saw in this house another girl with whom he is familiar. The dumbfounded owner of the house asked Ying if she was also familiar with this courier, and she honestly replied that it was her savior. She pulled Wang Han's hand to rest for a while, but he tried to refuse because he still had orders to deliver. Yuanbo tried to talk her out of it by saying that people like him had to work to make a living, which angered Ying. The main character turned around and left after saying goodbye to everyone, but Ying immediately ran after him, trying to stop him. The guy was embarrassed when the girl asked him to give her a ride to work because she just did not have a car. Yuanbo shouted that it was dangerous to drive this shabby electric scooter, and he was ready to take the girl in his Porsche. Wang Han was hesitant about agreeing to give the girl a ride, and he looked at his disgruntled wife standing in the doorway. The red-haired girl turned away, wondering why he was staring at her, since he could give anyone a ride. Our hero still agreed to give Ying a ride to work, and the girl waved to her friends, promising that they would meet again another time. A happy Ying rode off on the motorcycle with her rescuer, and the children watched them go for a long time. Yuanbo immediately turned his attention to Nannon and invited the goddess to eat pizza, but the girl, blushing with jealousy, did not pay attention to him. She left, saying that her company had an urgent matter. The guy offered her a ride, but Nannon refused to help. Meanwhile, the main character was racing through the busy city street, with Ying sitting behind him. The girl snuggled up to him and closed her eyes in fear, so the guy asked if he was driving too fast. Ying replied that everything was fine and enjoyed the opportunity to hug the object of her longing further. They both looked to their left in surprise when they noticed that a red sports car had caught up with them. Nannon was driving, and she asked her friend to move to her car, but the girl refused because they were almost there. Wang Han knew better than to make the child's mother angry, so he suggested that the girl move to the car because he suddenly had something to do. Ying thanked him and asked if he would have time on the weekend, because she wanted to buy him lunch. The guy replied that he was busy. She asked when he would have any time at all. Our hero replied that they would agree later, because now he needs to deliver orders. The main character sped off, and the girl finally asked him to be careful on the road. Wang Han was tense after dealing with women because there was no way he could handle them. That same evening, our hero was returning home, holding the hand of his godmother, whom he had picked up from school. He suggested that GoGo make her something to eat, since she was probably hungry, and the girl replied that she liked the food that her father prepared for her. When they got home, Wang Han realized that someone was there because there was a woman's pair of shoes on the floor. It turned out that it was the eldest princess Jong Tan. The girl came out of the shower and asked Dear why he came back just now. Wang Han closed his daughter's eyes and shouted for her to cover up, because there was a child here, and she didn't understand why he was so angry. The eldest princess Jong Tan first asked her lover who the girl was. The main character replied that this was his daughter, although the girl did not believe in his words that he was already married. Princess Jong Tan patted the little girl and smiled at her, saying that she could call her mother now. Our hero got angry at the girl and shouted, asking why she was talking some nonsense. He continued to be indignant and shout at the uninvited guest, demanding that she not spoil the girl with her example. But the princess continued to tell the girl that she was her mother, because she was the wife of this man, whom she called a bastard. Wang Han handed his adopted daughter her school backpack and asked her to be smart and go to her room and do her homework. GoGo agreed and obediently went to her room, our hero, and the girl silently watched her go until she left. When the girl left, Jong Tan immediately started yelling at our hero and kicking him, insulting him as a bastard. The main character started to get indignant, asking where her clothes were, and demanded that Jong Tan dress properly. The eldest princess sat down and warned the bastard that she would deal with him, because he dared to marry another woman instead of her. Covering his face with his hand, Wang Han handed the girl some clothes and told her to get dressed, because he was married now and she shouldn't have a circus here. She draped her jacket over her shoulders, lit a cigarette, and said that she had already made inquiries, so she knew that Wang Han only got married because of Nannon's pregnancy. The main character asked her to stop talking nonsense and asked her how long she was staying in Jiangning. The girl replied that she had come to the city not only to look for him, but also to discuss the deal with Lin Suifu. The guy thought that thank God it wasn't related to his wife, and confessed to the girl that he knew who Lin Suifu was. The main character suggested that the eldest princess eat, because his adopted daughter should also be hungry. The red-haired girl asked her lover if he really turned into a full-time nanny folder. She threw the jacket off her shoulders, pinned our hero to the closet, and he asked if she was doing something again. The girl put her hand on his face and said that she was wondering why Wang Han was acting like an enlightened monk with her. Their conversation was interrupted by GoGo, who came and announced to the godfather that she was already hungry. The girl immediately turned away and closed her eyes when she saw her father with that girl. And our hero was afraid when he noticed the presence of his daughter. Wang Han pushed the eldest princess away and told her to stop fooling around and start eating dinner. The guy changed his clothes and took his daughter by the hand to take her to a restaurant, and told Jong Tan that they would leave without her if she wasn't going to. But Jong Tan did not give up, she declared, calling the guy a smelly man, that sooner or later she would possess him. The main character brought GoGo to one of the restaurants in the city center, which was located in a modern glass building. Jong Tan tried to win the little girl over and said that she could eat whatever she wanted today because her mother was giving her treats. The girl asked the girl not to call her aunt, and it is better to call her godmother. This version of GoGo liked more. The waiter asked them if they liked this VIP lounge, and the red-haired girl replied indifferently that it was normal. Jong Tan complained to the girl that she had already gone on the offensive, but her godfather was not obeying, and Wang Han demanded that she stop talking nonsense in front of the child. At the same time, Sulie was in the restaurant and brought Mr. Lei, saying that he had reserved a private room for them. Ingratiating himself with the master, Sulie confessed to Lei that he hadn't found out who had stolen his project yet, but he knew that it might be related to Lin Qingyun. Lei said that he had heard that Nannon had taken control of the projects in the end, but the guy said that they didn't have the opportunity to interfere there now. Then the boss told the guy to find journalists to throw mud at the girl and put her in a bad light, so that they could push the project. Sulie praised the man for his brilliant idea, not knowing yet that the courier was right behind him right now. Boss Lei turned around and asked why this guy looked so familiar. He remembered seeing him at the auction. He screamed, asking how this was even possible and how that damn food delivery guy and Nannon's husband ended up in this restaurant. Sulie decided to go to check out. He cautiously peeked into the VIP lounge where our hero was just sitting down to have dinner. Jong Tan gave the girl a chicken leg. GoGo replied that she liked chicken legs. Dinner looked like a family idol. A sly smile appeared on Sulie's face, and he knew that he would have something to look at when he noticed that Wang Han was in the company of another girl. After dinner, Jong Tan asked the little girl if she had eaten well, and the little girl said yes and thanked her godmother for the food. Nannon, meanwhile, came to the apartment of our hero. She did not hear a sound inside, so she assumed that the guy was not at home. Soon, the main character, his adopted daughter and the eldest princess appeared in the corridor, and Wang Han told the girl to do her homework. Nannon was perplexed when she saw her husband in the company of strangers. Our hero was also taken aback when he saw his wife here. The eldest princess greeted the girl, assuming that she was the new wife of his lover. Sweating with embarrassment, our hero tried to justify himself by saying that Jong Tan was the daughter of his cousin who had come to Jiangning on business. Nannon got angry and said that she was just passing by, and now she's leaving because she has other things to do. The red-haired girl, clenching her fists in anger, started to walk away, but the sound of her stomach growling with hunger set her up. The main character suggested that his wife stay and at least eat at his house, assuming that his wife was hungry. Jong Tan asked the guy if he and Nannon didn't live together even though they were husband and wife. This affected Nannon. She agreed to go and eat together. Our hero began to frantically open the apartment door. Wang Han was sweating profusely, and he knew that he had entered a real battlefield because he was standing between two fierce girls. Inside, the guy immediately retreated, saying that he was going to cook, and told his adopted daughter to go do her homework. Jong Tan sat down on the sofa and asked our hero when he learned to cook. Nannon was overjoyed when she heard this, because the guy's words about cooking just for her turned out to be true. Wang Han was displeased that the eldest princess also wanted to join in the dinner, so he asked if she hadn't eaten enough at the restaurant. Jong Tan started to yawn. She replied to the young man that she was hungry again, openly flirting with him in front of his wife. Leaving for the kitchen, the angry protagonist shouted, demanding that the girl behave normally. Nannon approached the older sister from second aunt's side and handed her a bottle of water, telling her that she was probably thirsty after dinner. Jong Tan replied that from the girl's appearance, she should be the one calling her big sister. And Nannon said that she didn't look like she was younger. The eldest princess asked our hero when the food would be ready, and complained of hunger. The main character announced that the noodles were ready and put a whole bowl of hot food on the table for his hungry wife. Nannon walked over to the table and looked at the dish her husband had prepared for her with appetite in her eyes. Jong Tan intervened and shouted that she also wanted to eat his noodles, and Wang Han told the girl to shut up. The red-haired girl picked up her chopsticks and put the first batch of hot noodles in her mouth. She praised her husband for cooking so much better and asked him to bring her something sour and treat the girl to noodles. Jong Tan also sat down at the table and said that she would eat as many noodles as she liked, and GoGo brought a book here. She told her godfather that she had already finished her homework and asked if she could read a book of fairy tales now. The eldest princess asked GoGo to come to her so that she could read her a storybook herself. GoGo came over, handed her a book, and thanked her aunt. And Jong Tan once again asked her to call her mother. She patted the little girl's head and promised to buy her candy if she called her mom. But it didn't affect GoGo. Nannon asked the older sister on second aunt's side not to make things difficult for the child by standing up for GoGo. The red-haired girl decided to save GoGo from the society of the cunning aunt and asked the girl to come to her. Our hero's wife asked the girl to call her mother, not Jong Tan. GoGo was in a stupor. She fell silent and stared at the red-haired girl with round eyes, not knowing what to say. Fortunately, the main character came. The girl looked at her godfather, and he nodded, allowing her to do it. The girl agreed to call Nannon Mama, which made the girl happy, and she suggested that GoGo go to the bedroom to read a story to her. Nannon and her new adopted daughter left, and the girl finally told her second aunt's older sister to eat slowly. Jong Tan was indignant. The guy put a plate of noodles in front of her and told her to eat. She reluctantly agreed. She asked our hero if he was going to go to bed. He replied that he would sleep on the couch and she would be allocated a room. The eldest princess asked why Wang Han and his wife didn't sleep together, since they were officially married. The main character sat down on the sofa, lit a cigarette, and replied that the girl talks a lot, and told her to finish her noodles and go to bed. Nannon came back to the living room and told her husband to go to bed, but he was forced to agree and put out his cigarette. Jong Tan chuckled and got angry, saying that she had never seen our hero behave so obediently before. It was early morning, and events continued to unfold on the territory of the main character's apartment. Wang Han had already gone out on the balcony to do his morning exercises. The guy was standing on one arm. His wife also came out to greet him, and when he noticed her, he suggested that she go for breakfast. The girl replied that she would not have breakfast because she had to go to the company, because now the project is being prepared. Then our hero offered to take her to work. His wife turned around and said that there was no need to do this. It was better to let him take the girl to school. The main character offered to pick her up from work in the evening, but the red-haired girl replied that this was also not necessary. A grin appeared on the guy's face as he told his wife that she was still hot-tempered. Already in the car, Nannon was hit with the news that something serious had happened, and someone bribed the media to throw mud at her. She was angry when she heard that the project was also ordered to be suspended, and she was asked to look at the news link. The girl clicked on the link and saw the news that the precious daughter of the Su family was destroying the delivery man's family. Nannon frowned in anger. She gripped her mobile phone tightly and asked who could have arranged such a thing. Jong Tan came in while our hero was having breakfast and said that his wife was in trouble. And the guy said that was nonsense. The girl suggested that he see for himself if he didn't believe her, and handed him her phone. The main character picked up the phone and started shouting and swearing, claiming that these bastards had completely lost their fear. The guy immediately called Wenlong and asked him to help him with one case. The latter asked him to tell him more. Young Master Sulie was lying on the bed in his bedroom, his face buried in his phone. And the girl asked him what made him so happy. Sulie told the girl that right now, he felt like he was reborn because one good thing had happened. But a second later, his expression changed as someone stormed into his hotel room and he shouted out who it was. There were 3 men standing in the doorway. One of them, a guy in a t-shirt with tattoos, was the new boss of the Black Dragon Society. Sulie turned pale and broke out in sweat. He immediately became quiet when he saw Boss Long in front of him. He asked the boss who wanted to see him and what the big deal was, and they told him to get dressed because there was someone who wanted to meet him. The Black Dragon boss started shouting and told him to stop talking and get dressed quickly when the guy started asking questions. After some time, our hero also appeared at the hotel. His subordinate reported to the guy that they had captured that scoundrel. Sulie was dumbfounded when he saw Wang Han, the courier who was his cousin's husband, standing in front of him. Already wearing his jacket, the guy shouted, asking the moron why he was here and not delivering food. Our hero didn't say anything but just stared at the guy, and Sulie once again asked the jerk what he was doing here. Wang Han silently grabbed the first thing that came to hand, which was a white vase that was placed in the inn's room. The guy swung and hit the vase on the careless relative of his wife so that it shattered. Sulie clutched his injured face and shouted, asking if he was tired of living for the guy to hit him. But Sulie's shouting and threats did not frighten our hero. In response, Wang Han once again hit the guy for what he did to his wife. The slap was so strong that the careless cousin Nannon lost his balance and fell to the floor. Wang Han wasn't going to stop the punishment at this point. He grabbed the guy by the white shirt, He started scolding him for the way he treated his own sister. Sulie replied that she wasn't worthy of being called his sister. Then Wang Han swung his fist and shouted that the guy had no right to call himself a human, because he was a heartless scum. Angrily, Wang Han hit his wife's cousin once more, causing him to fall to the floor again. Sitting on his lap, Sulie asked Boss Long how much Wang Han had paid him, and promised that he would give twice as much if he sided with him. In response, Sulie received another slap in the face, but this time from Long, who asked how dare he talk to Wang Han. The main character told the subordinate to make Sulie solve all the problems with the rotten media that caused problems for his wife. The guy in the tank top grabbed Sulie's head and ordered him to do what our hero just told him to do. Sulie did not stop trying to reach out to the person who was beating him, so that he would stand on his side and help get rid of the courier. Boss Long shouted that he wasn't going to listen to this nonsense, and the guy should repeat it normally, and with that, he hit him again. The guy gave up and shouted that he would immediately shut up the media and get them to issue a rebuttal. The Black Dragon boss smiled and replied that it wouldn't be a problem if the guy acted normal right away. The following events unfolded on the territory of the office of the company headed by Nannon. She was outraged when an assistant told her that the media was demanding $80 million to remove the news about her. Her grandfather and father burst into the girl's office. The old man shouted that she had completely disgraced their family and asked if she was really capable of such a thing. Nannon tried to justify herself to the old man, shouting that it wasn't really what the false media had written. Her uncle said that he didn't expect her to be a part-timer and said that he had called President Liu and that she would be coming soon. The girl got up and shouted that she knew perfectly well whether she was a mistress or not and said that someone was obviously setting her up. But the old man shouted back that he didn't care, and now this situation must be resolved by any means. Her uncle said that he could crush the news, but only if she handed over control of the company, and she realized that this was their goal from the very beginning. He shouted that this project was originally supposed to be run by them, so Nannon should be smarter now that things were getting out of hand because of her. Nannon replied that they might not even dream of her handing over her powers to them, because it wasn't her fault. The grandfather got even angrier at his granddaughter. He slammed his cane loudly on the floor before telling her everything. He said that the too young granddaughter, whether she wants to or not, will have to transfer power, especially since President Liu is now unlikely to want to deal with her. At this moment, just as President Liu knocked on the open door, the bespectacled girl greeted Nannon with a smile. Nannon stood up when she saw that President Liu had come to discuss their joint project with her. The uncle and niece immediately made excuses to President Liu, promising that they would try to remove all negative posts. The old man yelled at his granddaughter, asking how much money she was going to use to bribe the media, and she replied that she would do it even if she had to borrow money. President Liu handed the girl a tablet and reassured her, saying that all the negative news from the media had already been removed. Nannon was dumbfounded. She looked at the screen and started stuttering, asking how this was possible. Her uncle immediately reached into his phone. He didn't understand what was going on and who did it. It was hard for him to believe that all the publications had disappeared. The old man still tried to convince Liu Yi not to give the project to his guilty granddaughter, but the girl was adamant. Grandpa tried to stop the president and change her mind, but she waved her hand and said that she was leaving, because she still had things to do. Nannon also had something else to say to the president, so she asked Liu to stay for a while. Liu Yi stopped and asked if she had any other questions. The girl asked for a personal meeting with her boss. The president replied that she doesn't have control over such things, and she can't predict what decision her boss will make in this matter. The bespectacled girl said goodbye to Nannon and went to the exit. The CEO wished her a final good day. The uncle and the old man left, complaining that the family's entire business would now go downhill, and Nannon shouted that everyone already knew who really broke up the family. The bewildered girl sat back in the chair and reached into the phone. She was wondering who finally solved her problem. She was shocked to read another piece of news about the courier being fired because of rumors of an affair with an heiress. The main character took on the duties of a courier. He rushed on his motorcycle to the office of the company where he works. He met his colleagues, who were just having a smoke break, and asked the fat man to lend him a power bank, as his phone died. The fat man asked our hero if he had heard about what was being written about him in the news right now. The main character replied that he didn't care what the tabloids wrote about him, and the fat man was forced to tell the guy that he was fired. Wang Han thought that his colleague was talking nonsense and asked who would even dare to fire him from his job. This conversation was just overheard by his boss, who coughed as he appeared in a dark silhouette in front of them, and the guys stood up straight. The manager told Wang Han that because of the rumored affair with that rich girl, the company decided to fire him because it received a bad response. Our hero tried to justify that this news was untrue and asked if the media had not already denied it. The boss offered the guy a cigarette, explaining that he could not cancel this decision of the management, but would help Wang Han get a job in security. The manager gave advice to the guy that a man needs to understand his place and not sit on the neck of a rich woman all his life. He decided not to lecture him anymore and handed him a business card, saying that these were the contacts of his brother, who would help him get a job. Wang Han said that being a security guard is also not bad, and colleagues advised the guy at the new job to stop bragging so much. The main character thanked his colleagues for the advice and let them go for their legal smoke break further. As then someone intervened in the conversation. The fat man looked at the man in shock, and our hero turned around when someone asked if Wang Han worked here. It turned out that it was Xiaawan Ying, and the girl was delighted when she saw that our hero really works here. The guy asked teacher Zia, holding a cigarette in her hands, how she got here, and his colleagues were shocked by the appearance of the beauty. The girl explained that she called him, but his phone was turned off, so she decided to come. Having heard from friends that he works here, a bewildered Wang Han asked if she was here for some business, while his colleagues stared at the beauty in fascination. Xiaawan Ying confessed that her father wanted to meet him, and suggested that they talk privately elsewhere. The guy replied that he would have no problem talking to her somewhere else, especially since he was just about to leave. Looking after the departing colleague, the guys came to the conclusion that their company had made Wang Han a sucker who handled everything for others. The manager kicked the fat man and shouted for them to get on with their work instead of continuing to envy Wang Han. The boys got on their scooters to start delivering orders when suddenly another expensive car stopped in front of them. They were surprised because there are too many luxury cars visiting this place recently. A girl with dark glasses got out of the car. It was Princess Jong Tan, who asked the guys where to find our hero. The guys were amazed to see the beauty dressed up. The fat man asked the girl who she was to their former colleague. Jong Tan lied and told the guys that she was Wang Han's wife and came to take her husband home. The guys were shocked to hear that Wang Han has another wife. One of them said that the guy is not a man, but a beast. The fat man gave Wang Han away, saying that he just got on his motorcycle and drove off in that direction with some girl. The eldest princess called Wang Han a bastard, complaining about how quickly he got out of here. Wang Han, meanwhile, was driving Xiaawan Ying, and she asked him to turn left in front, and then they would be almost there. When they finally arrived at the White Tiger martial arts school run by her father, Xiaawan Ying said that the scale of the hall wasn't small. They went inside. The girl told the guy that her father was waiting for her upstairs. In the hall, they met a strong guy in a white t-shirt. It was one of the students of the White Tiger School named Kang Hongja, and he asked the girl why she suddenly came today. The girl explained that she had brought Wang Han here specifically to introduce him to her father, and the boy assumed that he was a new student. Xiaawan Ying replied that this wasn't a new student but a new mentor that her dad had personally chosen. Kang Hongja assumed that the teacher had gone mad because he was looking at a boy with a dead build who couldn't even take one punch. Wang Han took his hand away from her, and the girl asked Kang to watch his tone when he spoke, and did not want to communicate with him anymore. The big guy said that the teacher was currently engaged in a conversation with an important guest, and suggested that the girl go to a concert for the weekend, but she refused. She grabbed our hero's arm and asked Kang Hongjae to move aside to let them pass. Kang Hongjae was angry when the girl rejected him and refused to go to the concert with him, saying that she had plans with this new mentor. The big man noticed that his lover was holding hands with Wang Han, and it made him jealous. He clenched his teeth in anger and thought that he would deal with our hero who dared to steal the woman he loved from him. Xiaawan Ying led our hero to her father's study, where the teacher was talking to a man at his desk. The father got up and asked his daughter why she didn't tell him about this earlier, because he would have come down and met the guest of honor himself. Mr. Xia shook hands with our hero and asked him to sit down. The guy told the man that he was too nice to him. When the old man shook hands with the protagonist, he felt as if the guy's palm was ablaze with flames. The man laughed and admitted that Wang Han's inner strength really impressed him. But the guy replied that he was flattered. Old man Xia Tianxiang introduced our hero to his guest, who called himself Old Liu, admitting that he was impressed by Wang Han's strength. Xia said that he didn't want to beat around the bush and admitted that he had called Wang Han to become their new boxing instructor. Our hero replied that he would not refuse the reward because he needed money, he had lost his job, and the child needed to be supported. The old man laughed, calling Wang Han a straight man, and offered to pay him 50,000 yuan a month. The main character got up from his chair and immediately agreed to the offer of the headmaster to become a boxing instructor. Grandpa laughed with joy, and Old Liu congratulated his friend on finding another talented instructor. The director of the school offered a new colleague to show him how everything works here. Our hero was not against it. When they arrived at the Great Hall, Old Man Xia Tianxiang asked his students to come over for a moment. He introduced the new instructor to the students. Wang Han introduced himself and asked them to support him and guide him because he was new here. The students were not happy because the instructor's physique didn't impress them, and Kang Hongjae asked what style he was practicing. The boy replied that he was a bit familiar with many styles, and Kang Hongjae suggested that the instructor teach him them. Wang Han started listing all the styles including Mantis, Wing Chun, Tongbei, Hongquan, and many others. The student asked the instructor if he knew what it meant to grab more than you can chew, thinking that the guy was just showing off. The students thought that their new instructor was just a show-off, and Kang Hongjae suggested that he prove his knowledge in practice. Xiaawan Ying stood up for our hero, asking Kang Hongjae why he was immediately hitting on his colleague. The other students didn't mind their friend Kang Hongja exchanging a few moves with the new instructor to see what he was worth. Old man Xiaawan also wanted our hero to show everyone what he was capable of, and the guy didn't mind. The big man Kang Hongja held out his fist and warned him that he was hitting hard, but asked him not to worry, because he would definitely stay alive. Flexing his fists, the main character replied that this is an interesting coincidence, because he also hits hard. Back then, Kang Hongja suggested that if the big guy won, he would invite Xiaawan to the concert this weekend. Our hero replied that it depends on whether Mrs. Xia agrees, and the girl screamed indignantly, asking the big man what would happen if he lost. Kang Hongja laughed like the rest of the students because he doesn't believe in the possibility of losing, so he allowed them to ask for anything. The girl suggested that the big guy give away the concert tickets so that she and Wang Han could go there together, and the guy agreed. Xiaawan instructed his disciple to control himself during the fight and stop in time. Kang Hongja was impatient to start a fight against our hero, and he told all the students to make way and make room. The main character was still standing quietly in the middle of the hall when the opponent rushed forward without warning, shouting that he wanted to see what the new instructor was worth. The guy grimaced. He was in disbelief, when a moment later our hero stopped him with his palm, hitting him on the neck. The tall, muscular guy grunted in pain. He didn't even have time to attack the new instructor when the latter stopped him with a single wave of his hand. After that, the martial arts hall instructor grabbed the arrogant disciple by the neck and pulled him over. Kang Hongja screamed in pain when our hero hit him on the torso with his knee. Wang Han released the battered boy and said that his speed was not bad, but his strength was not enough, and he should still practice. The big man collapsed to his knees and started clearing his throat. Xiaawan was delighted with the new instructor's abilities. She patted and told him that it was incredible. Old Liu said that our hero only put a third of his strength into his punch. Otherwise, the disciple would have been in the hospital by now. Kang Hongja clenched his teeth in anger. He looked at the protagonist with disdain and envy because he had never lost before. The student was not going to give up so easily. Emotions took over. He screamed furiously, rushed forward to pounce on the instructor. The main character managed to turn around and notice this. The girl shouted at him to be careful. The guy didn't have time to react. The big guy grabbed him by the torso and started screaming, wishing him death. Kang Hongja knocked our hero to the floor and began to wrestle with him, while Xiaawan screamed, asking the student what he was doing. The big guy said that showing mercy to the enemy means being cruel to yourself. And if the instructor does not understand this, he cannot call himself that. Xiaawan yelled at her father to stop his disciple. Old Liu also told his friend that the big guy didn't have any battle etiquette at all. Kang Hongja swung his leg to hit our hero and declared that the winner was the king and the loser was nothing. The big man's foot was already inches from the head of the boxing instructor, who was still lying on the floor after the guy's dastardly reception. At the last moment, the main character was blown up, and in a moment he was at the other end of the hall. He squatted down and swung. Kang Hongja looked at the instructor with disdain and accused him of doing nothing but run and dodge. The guy wasn't going to let him go so easily. The disciple rushed forward again, swinging his fist. He tried to attack the main character, but he easily dodged and said that the guy hits too slowly. Wang Han said that today he would teach a disciple a lesson, and said that the one who wins by force dies, and the one who wins by force dies. Kang Hongja didn't want to listen to the new instructor's moralizing, so he swung both hands and shouted for him to stop talking. He shouted that he did not believe that our hero could dodge endlessly, tried to hit him again and again, but to no avail. The big man shouted and swore as he tried to hit the protagonist with his fist, but Wang Han dodged each time. Grinning, the protagonist asked his opponent if this was all he could do because he was still hitting too slowly. With another swing, Kang Hongja shouted that he would take the life of an instructor who still dared to show off in front of a man who had been practicing martial arts for 15 years. Xiaawan was horrified when old Liu asked if the big guy wanted to take the instructor's life, intending to elbow him in the top of the head. The girl was very scared for the boxing instructor. She could not take her eyes off the guy, terribly worried for his life. Kang Hongja also looked startled as our hero launched a counterattack and also swung his arm. The martial arts hall disciple didn't have time to react before his opponent jumped up to the level of his face and was about to hit him. The main character successfully hit the negligent student with his hand, once again criticizing him for being too slow. This caused the arrogant Kang Hongja to collapse on the floor and close his eyes in sharp pain. The students were dumbfounded. They couldn't believe that the new instructor knocked out the best representative of the hall in one blow. Xiaawan was delighted to see that the object of her affections had won, and the girl immediately started running towards him. The girl grabbed his hand and began to praise him for how cool he was. Our hero was flattered by her words. Liu Yi told a friend that our hero is a minor master teacher, which means that Xia has found a real treasure and it would be good to take him as a son-in-law. Wang Han apologized to the mentor for injuring his student, who replied that the kid asked for it, and asked who the teacher of our hero was. The guy said that as a child he just trained randomly with older relatives, but the old man did not believe him. The students crowded around the big man, some of them trying to carry him upstairs, others shouting for an ambulance. When the main character was released, his phone vibrated. He just wanted to bring food for the baby's mother. The guy was noticeably surprised to see that the girl at that moment just sent him a message. Nannon wrote that she got him a job with a salary of $10,000 a month. The guy replied that he had already got a job, and his salary was now $50,000 a month. The girl did not believe her husband. He was offended by this, so he decided to take a picture of his employment contract. When his wife saw the photo, she decided not to argue anymore, remained silent, and reacted indifferently to this news. The main character said that he would bring her food soon, but the girl refused, writing that she would soon have a meeting with an important person. Wang Han was puzzled, curious as to what very important person his wife was talking about. In the course of the correspondence, the girl admitted that she was going to the boss who assigned her that project because she wanted to thank him. The main character thought that he was the same person who entrusted her with the project and decided that she was a stupid woman. The guy was afraid that someone was trying to cheat on his wife, so he called Jong Tan and asked her to find out where she was right away. At first, the eldest princess refused, but our hero switched to shouting and insisted, so she agreed, but asked him to wait. After punching her location in her laptop, Jong Tan told the guy that his cute little wife was currently drinking alcohol with another man. She sighed heavily and said that that man wasn't so-so because he put something in Nannon's glass. The main character started swearing loudly when he heard this, because he was afraid for his pregnant wife. He immediately charged forward on his red motorcycle, shouting that he would personally take the life of the man who did this. Lin Weifu started driving quickly down the dusty street of the city, intending to find his consort as soon as possible. The next action took place at the inn, where Nannon went to meet the boss. The girl had already passed out as suspected. Someone had tricked her into meeting an important boss. It turned out to be Lin Jingpeng, who was standing in front of her and giggling viciously, admitting that he had mixed something in the water because she didn't drink wine. The guy looked at his victim, licking his lips and rubbing his hands. He believed that now his beloved would definitely not run away. Lin Jingpeng took out his phone, intending to take a video of everything so that he could blackmail the girl and infuriate her courier husband. The scoundrel's plans did not come true because in a couple of seconds the main character burst into the hotel room from his feet. Not seeing who exactly had entered, Lin Jingpeng shouted, asking if the person hadn't seen the Do Not Disturb sign on the door. Our hero started shouting insults at the guy, and then Lin Jingpeng turned around and was shocked to see that this was the girl's husband. Startled, he asked what Wang Han was going to do, but it was too late because our hero was about to attack him. Enraged, Wang Han swung his hand and shouted that he was going to deal with the scoundrel. The guy slapped Lin Jingpeng's face with all his strength, causing him to lose his balance from the force of the blow. The scoundrel flew back, slammed into the wall and screamed. He put his hand to his head and grimaced in pain. Lin Jingpeng wanted to fight back against the protagonist, but his ridiculous punch missed, and Wang Han easily dodged it. Wang Han wasn't going to let go of the bastard so easily, but he elbowed him on the back so that he grimaced in pain. The impact was enough to send the weakling crashing to the floor without even having time to group up. The battered kid started shouting that his grandfather was Mr. Lin himself, and offered to pay our hero so that they could both pretend that nothing happened today. Lin Jingpeng's stories didn't affect the protagonist in any way. The enraged husband swung his foot to punch the scoundrel again. After being kicked in the face, Lin Jingpeng began threatening our hero that he would kill his entire family. Afterward, he swore that he hadn't touched his wife and offered to pay Wang Han a whole $1 million to stop him from hitting him. The guy did not manage to get our hero to eat. Wang Han pinned him to the floor with his shoe. The scoundrel complained about how much it hurt. Nannon started to recover. The poison made her blush all over, and the girl started complaining about how hot she was. But our hero still couldn't let go of the bastard. He kicked him in the face once more, taking revenge for his wife. After dealing with the criminal, Wang Han ran to his wife and gave her a drink of water, supporting her head with his hand. Lin Jingpeng immediately started calling his grandfather and shouting into the phone to come quickly, because they want to take his life. The guy in the blue jacket looked at our hero with horror on his face, who came up to him and loomed over him like an intimidating shadow. The main character decided to teach the scoundrel a lesson again, so he kicked him right in the face again. Soon, Wang Han was sitting in another hotel room, with Lin Jingpeng lying on the floor, both of them waiting for someone to arrive. After a while, an elderly man with a walking stick entered the hotel room and announced his arrival to the young master. The angry guy frowned at the old man and asked if it was his grandson who was lying on the floor next to him. Lin Jingpeng grabbed his grandfather's leg and started shouting for him to quickly call for people to deal with Wang Han. He looked at his grandfather with pleading eyes and asked if he had come here alone. After apologizing to our hero, an elderly man hit his grandson on the head with a cane and shouted, asking if he really wanted to drive the old man to the grave. He once again hit his careless grandson with a cane when the latter asked why he was beating him and wanted to complain about the delivery man. The elderly man turned to the young master and said that it was Wang Han who would decide what to do with this bastard, his grandson. Lin Jingpeng looked at his grandfather dumbfounded. He didn't understand why the old man called this delivery guy young master. The main character got up from his chair, holding a cigarette between his fingers, and told old Lin that he knew their rules perfectly well himself. the sweating grandfather replied, looking down at the floor, that he knew that those who abused women were punished with castration. Shaking all over, the grandfather turned to his grandson, calling him a brute, and accused him of disgracing their entire family. An elderly man swung his sharp cane to execute the punishment for his delinquent grandson. Mr. Lin punched him between the legs with such force that the scoundrel put his hands to his head and screamed in pain for the entire hotel. Meanwhile, Nannon woke up in another room, hearing someone yelling. She didn't understand what she was doing here and why her head was spinning. At that moment, a terrified Lin Zuifu ran into the room, shouting that she had learned from her grandfather that Lin Jingpeng didn't know the boss at all. She asked her friend if that freak had done something to her, and Nannon said that she didn't really remember anything, only that someone had broken in and beaten Lin Jingpeng. Lin Zuifu reassured her friend, saying that the main thing was that she was fine, and suggested that she leave this place first. The blonde girl was surprised when she noticed a black pearl with the image of a dragon on the bed. Nannon said that this bead looked familiar to her, and her friend asked if it wasn't something that the young master who saved her had left behind. The red-haired girl agreed with the blonde's suggestion and replied that it looked like it was true. She asked her friend to help her find out who had saved her, and Lin Zuifu couldn't wait to deal with that dog Lin Jingpeng. The main character returned to that hotel room and found that his wife was no longer there. He assumed that she was scared out of her mind and ran away. He decided that he had to deal with his grandfather's case immediately, otherwise he would lose his temper, and reached into the inside pocket of his courier jacket. The guy was horrified when he found out that his bead was missing. He thought that he dropped it in the gym during sparring. Sulie met up with his grandfather, the head of the family, and the old man asked what happened to get beaten up like that by that delivery guy. The guy complained about the courier, saying that he was not an ordinary guy because he was somehow connected with the Black Dragon organization. Mr. Lei, who came with him, smiled maliciously and said that the Black Dragon group wasn't much either. The grandfather asked Mr. Lei if he knew what to do, and the man asked if the old man's power wouldn't go back to the old man's hands if Nannon died. Sulie started to wonder what the young master was driving at. He wanted to tell him about it, but the beaten guy was interrupted. Lei clenched his fist and suggested that they just find people and get rid of the girl, because they know that every day she returns home at the same time. The man with the mustache looked ahead from under his brows and said that the sooner it happened, the better. Sulie was fired up with this idea. The guy said that he wouldn't even wait until tomorrow, but would search for people today. At sunset, the main character and his adopted daughter were returning home after he picked her up from school. At home, the guy told GoGo to go do her homework while he prepared lunch, and Jong Tan was waiting for them inside. The eldest princess called the girl over and took her backpack, offering to help GoGo do her homework. The protagonist picked up the phone, wondering if Nannon had eaten today or not, because the girl must have been very scared. The guy wrote that he had prepared her favorite dishes and offered to bring them to her, but the girl refused, saying that she would eat at home. Wang Han concluded that his wife wasn't up to eating at all, and then he was disturbed by a phone call. It was Sulie, who admitted his guilt and invited the guy to have dinner together in the evening to settle all the problems. Our hero agreed to show up for a family dinner before 8:30 in the evening. Sulie was happy and said goodbye to his son-in-law. Wang Han was at a loss as to why his wife's cousin had started acting like a human being. He was completely unused to it. When it got dark, the guy got on his red motorcycle and raced through the streets of the city. He hoped that there would be enough time for him. The main character drove up to a pedestrian crossing and was forced to stop to let pedestrians pass. A woman with a child was crossing the road, and the guy noticed that several cars were coming from behind, which were not going to stop. Suspecting that these cars were chasing him, he turned around, looked at them with displeasure, and asked if they were tired of living. The black van continued down the road, its headlights blinding, and the police car was right behind it. Our hero was still standing near the pedestrian crossing and waiting for pedestrians to clear the way. But the van did not stop. After a few meters, the black car finally stopped right next to the woman who was leading her son by the hand across the road. The door of the van opened, revealing a tall, muscular, bald man with tattoos on his face and body. The bandit, grinning nastily, grabbed the boy by the t-shirt and pulled him into the car. He screamed in fright. The woman tried to save her son. Unfortunately, the child was abducted. The woman could only shout, demanding that the bandits let her son go. Even the main character was impressed by this egregious act. It was hard to believe that he saw the abduction in broad daylight. The driver of the black van pressed the gas pedal to the floor and sped forward. The woman collapsed on the asphalt, calling for help. Our hero said that the bandits were obviously unlucky today. Since they ran into him, he was determined to deal with them. The guy drove off to catch up with the black van and rescue the kidnapped boy. Wang Han soon drew level with the black van, the driver shouting, "Is this guy tired of living since he's meddling in his own business?" Our hero was determined to stop the car at all costs. He pushed the van with his foot on the move, so that the driver lost control. The bald bandit told the driver not to pay attention to this moron, because they need to leave soon, otherwise the police will catch up with them. The driver gave our hero the middle finger, called him a stupid bastard, and promised that he would deal with him later. The black van increased its speed, so Wang Han's motorcycle was behind, and the distance increased greatly. Wang Han didn't mind taking up the challenge and playing a race with the bandits. He was going to catch up with the car. The car with the bandits and our hero's motorcycle turned left at the same time, and Wang Han was slightly ahead. The blonde thug behind the wheel of the van stiffened when he saw the guy on the motorcycle catch up with them. By clipping the black van, Wang Han managed to make the driver lose control and crash into a building. Wang Han also got off the motorcycle and walked to the car. He started calling for the yellow-haired bandit to get out of the van. The van driver abruptly jumped out of there, holding a knife in his hand, and sent Wang Han out, intending to attack him. The attempt to stab Wang Han with a knife was a failure. Our hero swung his fist in response. The blonde didn't even have time to notice as our hero was already behind him and swung his hand to attack him. The bandit grimaced and widened his eyes when he received an unexpected blow from the main character with the edge of his palm on the back. It was enough to knock the blonde bastard out, and Wang Han walked over to the terrified boy. The guy took pity on the child, asked him not to be afraid, and promised that his mother would come right away. Our hero noticed how the second criminal, a big shaven-headed man with tattoos, was already running away in fright. Wang Han wasn't going to let him go so easily. He ran after him to catch up and teach the bandit a lesson. The guy shouted after him that he would watch him run away, and they turned a corner and found themselves in a narrow alley. The shaven-headed bandit ran to the entrance of the house. Our hero caught up with him and was already a couple of meters away from the criminal. The scoundrel did not give up. He ran with all his might up the stairs, trying to hide from the main character. The gunman seemed to know where to run, because he went up to the right floor and reached the apartment where he wanted to hide. Wang Han broke into this apartment and asked if the bastard wanted to play hide-and-seek with him. There was someone else inside. The guy was confused when he saw that a woman was lying on the bed, holding a black whip in her hands. She was not afraid of the appearance of a stranger. The girl suggested that the guy come up to her so that she would have fun with him. The two of them whirled around and looked at the door leading to another room, where the bald bandit had disappeared. The girl was insistent. She got up and came closer to our hero, asking if he was really unhappy with his older sister. Wang Han was confused, and the girl promised that she would give him a discount of 598 yuan, and our hero became quite uncomfortable. He waved her off and explained that he really hadn't come to see her, and asked her to let him pass. The main character wanted to grab the criminal, but noticed that at that moment police officers broke into the apartment. It was Inspector Yang, the policewoman, who pulled out a gun and shouted, telling everyone not to move. The girl started to make excuses that she was just renting a hotel room with a guy, but the inspector told her to put her hands behind her head and not move. The main character also listened to the police officer, and Inspector Yang heard that there was someone else in the apartment. The police officer turned to the people who were sitting in that room and said that the police were outside. Inspector Yang advised them not to resist, so she went to the door and planned to open it. When the girl opened the door a crack, our hero immediately noticed the shaven-headed criminal who was hiding there. The scoundrel, holding an iron bowl in his hand, rushed out of the room and swung it to attack the police officer. The main character stood up for Inspector Yang. He shouted at her to be careful and pushed her to save her from being hit. Inspector Yang was furious. She shouted, "Did the bald bandit just dare to attack a police officer?" The girl easily neutralized the criminal and forced him to lie down on the floor. She twisted him to immobilize him. Even the main character was impressed with Inspector Yang's abilities. He thought it was tough. Yang radioed her colleagues to send people because she had detained 2 suspects at the Xingshan Hotel. Our hero tried to explain to the policeman that he had just helped her catch criminals, and he was an exemplary citizen, not a suspect. Inspector Yang didn't believe him. She only said that it was a good thing that she had brought an extra pair of handcuffs with her. The main character was outraged that she was doing this to him, but the police officer told him to stop talking and handcuffed him. He tried to explain to her that it was a misunderstanding, but Jan said all she knew was that the police didn't frame good people. Soon, Wang Han was sitting in handcuffs at the police station, and he asked the officer if she could give him some water. Inspector Yang started to get indignant, asking if the guy really thought the police station was his home. A police officer came into the office and praised Yang for doing a great job today. After all, they had been hunting for those 2 bandits for a long time. She stood up and said that the director was just flattering her, because when she arrived, one was already injured and the second was detained. The police handed her documents indicating that our hero is not a criminal and told her to remove the handcuffs from him. It was hard for Inspector Yang to believe that there was no mistake in the documents, but she still released our hero. The main character flexed his hands after being handcuffed and told the police officer that he himself had told her about who he really was, and quietly mumbled that she had no brains. The police officer grimaced, became angry, and shouted, asking Wang Han what he had just said. The guy grabbed his phone, saw that it was late, and immediately ran out of the station because he was already late. The main character was afraid that the mother of his unborn child would explode again when the guy did not show up for a scheduled meeting. He decided to take a taxi back, and Wang Han asked the driver to go faster, but he refused because safety is first and foremost. Then Wang Han decided to pay a bribe. He handed the driver a whole pack and once again asked if he could go faster now. This had an effect on the driver, who pressed the gas pedal all the way down. and the car shot forward much faster than before. At this time, the elite mansion was ablaze with flames. Firefighters were already preparing to extinguish the fire, and neighbors did not understand why the house caught fire so suddenly. The taxi that our hero was in had already arrived at the scene of the accident at the house where his wife lived. He was at a loss as to why there was a fire here, because the Sue family was only planning to have dinner. He was wary when he heard from a neighbor that the Sue family's eldest daughter was still inside, as she was returning home at this time. The main character was horrified. He looked at the burning house and realized that the mother of his unborn child was still there. He shouted, asking the woman if it was true. She replied that Nannon returns home every day at this time. Without hesitation, our hero tore off his jacket and rushed forward to check if his wife was really still there. The neighbor tried to stop him, because the fire is too strong, and you should not be reckless. The firefighter also shouted, trying to reason with him. The woman put her palms together and turned to the heavens, and the firefighters called for backup because the guy broke into the center of the fire. It turned out that Nannon had no idea about the fire all this time. She just got out of the car and saw it. The girl approached the neighbor and asked why the house was on fire. The woman was shocked when she saw that Nannon was fine. The neighbor was startled and immediately admitted that because of her, that young guy had just sacrificed himself for Nannon in vain. Nannon asked what kind of young guy the woman was talking about, and if there was anyone else left in the villa. She was shocked when she heard from a neighbor that a burly young guy just now, upon hearing that Nannon was inside, rushed into the fire. The girl started shouting her husband's name. She wanted to rush into the fire after him, but the fireman held her tightly. Nannon was sobbing and shaking violently, grieving for Wang Han. And a neighbor said that in such a big fire, even bones melt. The firefighters asked the girl to accept their condolences, and Miss Sue collapsed to her knees and continued to cry, shouting her husband's name. Firefighters began to put out the fire with hoses, and Ms. Sue complained that her husband was able to just leave her. As the flames subsided, the acrid smoke revealed the silhouette of a man who had climbed out of the burning house. It turned out that it was the main character, whose body was engulfed in flames. Firefighters immediately gathered to extinguish it. Firefighters extinguished the fire on the body of the guy, who helped himself with his hand and admitted that he almost died of fear. Mrs. Sue saw that her husband had survived and immediately rushed over to him, shouting his name. The red-haired girl threw herself into his arms, surprising the guy, and asked if he, the fool, was really tired of living. She couldn't stop crying as she hugged the boy tightly and asked what would happen to her and the baby if he died. The main character hugged her back, smiled, asked her not to worry, and assured her that everything was fine with him. Nannon didn't stop yelling at him for scaring him to death, and it wouldn't be worth it if the guy really died. She wanted to see if her husband was injured, and the neighbor also advised him to go to the hospital and check up. But Wang Han refused. As the firefighters continued to fight the blaze, Nannon wondered how her house had suddenly caught fire. The main character frowned, because he realized that all this was definitely set up by her cousin, who invited him to dinner today. The girl carefully covered the guy with a blanket and said that now she would take him home. Our hero agreed. Soon, Nannon's red car drove up to the apartment complex where her husband lived. At home, our hero told her that earlier Sulie called him and invited him to dinner, but he couldn't come because he was late. Nannon said that she had set up cameras at home, and the recording was saved in her phone, and she intended to put her brother away if he was behind the fire. The girl looked at the video from the cameras and was convinced that the fire was set up by her cousin. She saw him enter the house with two guys who were dragging cans of gasoline. Wang Han told the mother of his unborn child that they needed to eat first, and that they could deal with this scumbag tomorrow. Nannon picked up her chopsticks and started eating the hot noodles, but all her thoughts were filled with wanting to take revenge on her cousin. The next day, our hero again saddled his red motorcycle. He was driving along the intersection when he noticed a red car. He had to stop abruptly when the car didn't let him pass, and he shouted, asking if the driver knew how to drive. There was a girl at the wheel, and she apologized and admitted that she was just learning to drive, so she was bad at it. It was Inspector Yang, the police officer who had apprehended our hero, who was outraged and stunned to see that she had met him again. The guy got off the bike and recognized Officer Yang. He said that now it is not surprising that the girl rammed him. The inspector got out of the car, looked at him in disbelief and asked what he was doing here. The guy replied that he worked here. They entered the gym. Jan asked why she hadn't seen him before because he always trains here. Our hero replied that he got a job only yesterday. The students respectfully greeted their new boxing instructor, who waved them on and wished them a good morning. Inspector Yang was displeased when she heard that our hero was a boxing coach, so he looked at her sideways and asked why he couldn't be one. She screamed that the guy couldn't even beat her, but still came here and got a job as a trainer. The main character wanted to leave, but Inspector Yang shouted that she didn't believe him and wanted to fight him to test his abilities. Wang Han replied that he didn't fight with women, but the woman was serious, and she warned him that she would hurt him if he stared at her. She once again shouted that she did not believe him, wanted to attack the guy, but our hero jumped out of the way in time. Wang Han didn't want to fight her. He warned her that he would only fight her with one hand, but she would have to hit her forehead if she lost to him. Jan was about to launch a jump kick at him, yelling at the bully that he had already lost to her, but was still playing tough. The main character easily protected himself with his hand from the girl's leg and told the inspector that she had no strength at all. The guy was taken aback when he saw that the policeman was not going to give up. She rushed at him with a frenzied expression on her face. Glaring at her opponent, the girl swung her fist at full range to hit the guy. The main character managed to duck when Inspector Yang tried to kick him in a jump. Our hero asked her if that was all she was capable of, and if she was only brought to the police because she was assigned by an acquaintance. Inspector Yang shouted for the guy to cover his mouth, and once again raised her leg up to try and attack him. The girl straightened her leg, trying to hit the opponent's head with her foot. But this time, she did not succeed. After doing a backflip, Wang Han retreated to a safe distance and shouted that it was his turn since she no longer had any trump cards, but she did not want to let him attack. The girl rushed forward in a jump, demanding that our hero not be arrogant. This time, the persistent policewoman managed to slap Wang Han across the jaw with her palm, making him grimace. But after a moment, she tensed as her opponent grabbed her arm to disarm her. The main character also immobilized the girl's other arm, then pressed it to him and, frowning, looked into her eyes. Inspector Yang began to feel embarrassed and indignant, trying to escape from the strong hands of our hero. The girl screamed in pain. She screamed, demanding from the guy that he immediately let go of her hand. Tears were already starting to form in her eyes, and the guy abruptly released her, causing her to lose her balance. Smiling, Wang Han asked if she admitted defeat. The disgruntled policewoman admitted that her skills were inferior, and she lost. Since she admitted defeat, the main character wanted the girl to carry out the punishment. The inspector immediately started to take off her clothes, thinking that she would have to run naked down the street, but the guy stopped her, shouting that he was just joking. She became indignant, believing that a martial arts practitioner should be able to admit defeat and keep his word. Our hero ran away, shouting that he was married and he would not look at someone else's woman, and decided to retreat, justifying that he had business. The inspector smiled, calling the guy a small fry who, with his lack of courage, decided to compete with her. Xiaawan Ying spent her free time playing the piano, and Kang Hongje praised the girl, saying that she played really well. The girl asked the big man if he understood at least something in the classics, so that he could stand here and admire at random. Our hero also entered the room, saying that he did not think that teacher Xia could play the piano so well. Kang Hongje got mad at the guy as soon as he came, and our hero flashed his knowledge, saying that the girl just played a night piano piece. The girl admitted that it was her favorite play, and Wang Han replied that he preferred the concert Rural Love. Blushing with embarrassment, Xiaawan Ying asked the guy if he could play the piano too, and asked him to do it. Kang Hongje shouted that such a clumsy guy definitely can't play. The girl asked him not to pay attention to the big guy. She was delighted when the main character agreed to sit down at the instrument and once again play the night piano piece. Closing his eyes, Wang Han began to play a piece from memory, and a pleasant melody filled the room. Xiaawan Ying couldn't stop blushing as she watched her lover play the piano. She admitted that it was really incredibly beautiful. Kang Hongje was upset. He was forced to admit that the main character really knows how to handle the piano. Wang Han played the piece in its entirety and tapped the keys one last time, completing the piece. Xiaawan Ying was delighted. She said that our hero plays even better than her. The guy replied that she was overpraising him. Kang Hongje was angry that the boy had only tapped the keyboard a couple of times and was already daring to lecture teacher Xia. A woman entered the room and asked Xiaawan Ying if she had just performed a night piano piece on the piano. The woman, holding a folder in her hand, said that she did not expect the girl to improve her skills with the tool so much. Kang Hongje hinted to the boy that he had to leave because the teacher had come to play piano with the girl. Xiaawan Ying confessed that she wasn't the one who played the play just now, and the teacher asked who it was, and the girl pointed out our hero. The teacher looked with interest at Wang Han, who was about to leave the room. She screamed at him to stop because she recognized him as Professor Wang, but he said that she had mistaken him for someone else. Xia didn't understand why Wang Han would suddenly turn out to be a professor, and Kang Hongje would tell the teacher that our hero was just a regular courier. But the teacher was not mistaken. She told our hero that she was Andy, with whom he studied at Berkeley, and then he personally mentored her. The guy also remembered her after her explanation. He said that it was late, so he had to go home to prepare dinner, and they would talk next time. Andy explained to the bewildered kids that Wang Han is a professor emeritus at Berkeley College of Music, who is respected even by professors of prestigious universities. Kang Hongje was shocked when he heard this. He stared at the teacher in a dumbfounded manner and asked if she was sure she hadn't messed up. She replied that it was impossible. She couldn't be mistaken, and asked Xi why she needed someone else if she was being taught by Professor Wang himself. The stunned girl stammered back that she hadn't expected the subject of her affections to be a professor. Our hero returned to his wife. She asked how his work in the wushu hall was progressing, and he replied that everything was fine. The guy was surprised when someone started calling him, because he no longer works as a courier, and saw that it was an old man. He went to the window and answered the phone, and they immediately yelled at him for being impudent by getting into the wushu hall on his own. The old man, sitting on the throne, warned the boy that he would call his older sister to talk to him properly. The main character decided not to argue with the man, saying that he had already decided everything for him, so there was nothing to say to him. The man said that someone stole the Buddha's head from the museum and is going to sell it abroad, so Wang Han needs to return the stolen exhibit to the museum. Behind the theft was Changren, a mad organization in the criminal world that always acts harshly and directly, without recognizing the laws. The man also told the boy to keep the pearl with him at all times, and Wang Han thought that he needed to find out what was missing as soon as possible, otherwise he would have problems. Nannon asked if something was wrong, and her husband said that it was fine and she should have a quiet meal while he met with one person. The girl told the guy to be careful. He mumbled something in response and announced that he was already leaving.